Oh, I need a piece of chocolate.
What's he talking about? That's where I was confused when he's talking about.
Okay. I'll be going. Where are you going? We're going through some hearing issues now. We have some extra steps until I can get hearing aids because the results are unusual. Why not? Everything is complicated. Good afternoon and welcome to Crow Wing County's Planning Commission and Board of Adjustment meeting. It's 3 o'clock on May 21st, 2026. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you have not already done so, please silence your cell phones. And if you are online, please make sure you have muted your microphone until you are ready to speak. Please note that this public hearing is being recorded. The first item on the agenda is roll call. Rock Linemy.
Here.
John Auger.
Here.
Sue Maskey.
Here.
Andy Larson.
Here.
And I am Rebecca Best. The next item is to approve the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Madam Chair.
Okay, if not, I would then ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
The motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Sue. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved. The next item is to approve the minutes and findings of fact for the meeting held on April 16th, 2026.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes and finding of facts.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And a second. Any further discussion?
Yep, Madam Chair,
Yes.
if it's agreeable to the motion maker and second, I'd like to suggest that where there are roll call votes, that we should record the roll call. So that's kind of the standard practice when we have roll call votes. So if we could just, the last two items were roll call votes, if we could just actually amend the minutes to record the roll call and then kind of make that our practice, I think that would work.
That sounds reasonable?
Madam Chair, we can definitely do that.
Okay, that sounds great. You're okay with that? Rock?
Yes.
Okay. With that change, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Today, we have 11 items of, 1 item of old business and 11 items of new business, so we greatly appreciate your patience. Our procedure is when we call your application, you will be admitted to the meeting if you are online, or if you are in person, please come to the table in the front and have a seat and state your name and address for the record. We will then have staff read your request into the record. We will then give the applicant an opportunity to add any new information that has not been previously submitted. After that, we open the request up for public testimony, and today we will have 2 public testimony opportunities. One is in person and one is online. And if you are online and wish to speak to an application, please use your hand icon to indicate that you wish to speak. Then once you are admitted, please unmute your microphone and state your name and address for the record. If you are speaking in person, please come to the microphone at the podium in the center aisle. In either case, you will be given 5 minutes to give your testimony. And we do keep time. Andy Larson is our timekeeper for testimony, so please do not repeat what someone else has said, and please do not read your emails or letters that have already been sent. Everyone who wishes to give testimony will have an opportunity to do so. Once we close public testimony, we will not reopen it. We then will bring it back to the applicant to address the items brought forth from the public. Our rules of conduct are please be respectful. For the applicant, this means to sit quietly during the public testimony period, and for the audience, it means to do the same for the applicant as they respond to your testimony. All questions and statements are to be directed to this board or members of staff, not to the applicant. Anyone that I feel is being disrespectful or not following these rules will be asked to leave or will be disconnected from the meeting. Our decision process. For a preliminary plat or land use map amendment request, we make a recommendation to the county board. For a variance, conditional, or interim use permit request, we make the final decision. And we make our decisions based on our findings of fact. To help us do that, we do several things. We do on-site visits where we physically go to the property and examine the site and look at what's being planned. Prior to attending this meeting, we each read every letter and email that is submitted, and we then hear public testimony and we listen to the applicant. I'd like to pause just for a moment to let the public know that we do greatly appreciate your correspondence and input. We have all read the submitted comments. In addition to that, we have a worksheet that we use to help summarize the findings of fact. Preliminary findings have been included in the staff packet. Next, I will ask each board member if they have reviewed the preliminary findings of fact that were provided in the packet. Sue?
Yes, I have.
Rock?
I have.
Andy?
I have.
And John?
I have.
And I have as well. With that being said, our first applicant this evening would be Michael and Julio Giorgio for variance.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Bounce. I'm Mike Giorgio, 4556 Lakeview Lane, Jenkins Township, Minnesota.
Thank you.
I'm Jamie Storzinger, 34244 North Oak Drive, Pequot Lakes.
Thank you very much. And Nicolette, will you read the request into the record, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, tonight we have property owner Michael and Julie Giorgio, parcel number 722-60536. Physical address is 4556 Lakeview Lane in Pequot. This is in Jenkins Township, and the request tonight is a variance for the lake setback of 86 feet, where 100 feet is required to construct a 784 square foot detached garage, and a variance for a 1,831 square foot driveway to be located in the shore impact zone where no driveway is allowed within the lake setback. On page 18 of your packets, this property is located on Nelson Lake. It is a recreational development lake off of West Nelson Lake Road, and it's just north of County Road 45. Nelson Lake, like I said, is a recreational development lake with a 100-foot setback. This application was discussed at the April 16th public hearing, and the board decided to table the application to obtain additional evidence regarding the historic driveway. I'll discuss more on that in just a moment. I'm first going to go to the survey on page 20 of your packet. And make this a little smaller. So over here we have Nelson Lake. This is the existing house with the proposed garage here to be 86 feet from Nelson Lake. We have the existing driveway going in here. This is the setback, the 100-foot setback here, and then the amount of driveway that goes in to the shore impact zone area. On page 27 of your packets, there are additional aerial photos that were provided upon request of the board, and I'm just going to walk through these here a little bit with you. So this photo here was captured in 2017, just showing the aerial photo of what we have for the driveway of what was existing at that time. Here is a 2025 aerial photo of the driveway. I thought we had other driveways. So this is I do want to point out that they do have a stormwater management plan in place for the driveway to slow water down as it goes down the hill because there is a significant incline. And this was the proposed from the landowner of putting, I'm not sure the term for those.
Great.
Yeah, across the driveway to slow the water down.
A gutter.
Yeah. No comments were received from the township, and 2 comments were received from the public with no objection other than to ensure erosion control protection for the lake. And if the board does approve this application tonight, staff would like to recommend the following 3 conditions. A land use permit prior to construction, of course, implementation of an erosion and sediment control plan, and 3, implementation of a stormwater plan to include measures to prevent runoff from the driveway into Nelson Lake. I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of staff at this time? Hearing none, I'll ask the applicant if you have anything that you'd like to add.
I'll defer to my contractor.
Okay.
No, everything's been explained. It's just, so.
Okay, thank you. At this time, then, we'll open up this request for public testimony. Is there anyone in the courtroom that would like to address this application? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing no one in the courtroom, I'll go to online. Is there anyone online who would like to address this application? Don't believe so. So then we will bring it back to the board for further discussion and action.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This item was tabled in April because we wanted evidence of the existence of the driveway in the shore impact zone. I don't know that it's conclusive as to when it existed, but it has obviously existed for some period of time in some form, be it gravel, dirt, whatever, right? So I think also that it was improved at some point. The pictures seem to show that without a permit, as I understand it. However, my understanding from following up with the staff is that if the applicant came in for a permit because of the understanding that it had already existed, they would get a permit. And I think the third point I'd make is the stormwater management plan seems to be pretty good. The concern is, of course, the water going down on the paved surface right into the lake, and I think we have a plan that's probably pretty good. So, you know, my thinking is to approve the request with those, given those comments.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Madam Chair, if there is no discussion, I would offer a motion
Thank
to
you.
approve the variance request for the lake setback of 86 feet, where 100 feet is required, and the 1831 square foot driveway to be located in the shore impact zone where no driveway is allowed within the lake setback, to construct the identified detached garage and driveway. Given the survey that's been presented, the findings of fact in the staff report, the findings of fact favorable, and the 3 conditions in the staff report that have been reviewed tonight.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a second. And I don't know if we want to bring up those findings of fact?
Yep, Madam Chair, findings of fact are on page 40 of your packet.
We've
Madam
had-
Chair, before we vote, I'd like to ask staff a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, we want the storm, I understand they've got a plan in place for that water coming off the driveway going into the lake. Is there any way we could get this condition that gets installed prior to any dirt moving or anything for that garage? If we get a heavy rain, and I just think we need to, I'd like to see that part implemented before.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Sue, I think you could put a condition in place that, you know, I'm not sure it maybe needs to be sequential as much as saying we'd like to see that stormwater plan completed in the year that the permit is obtained for the, you know, for the garage. So if they get a permit this spring, we want to see that stormwater plan put in by the end of this year. I think that would be pretty fair.
Okay, I would like
Or,
to.
but you
My
could.
concern with that, Sue, is won't you be better off requiring the silt fence?
Yes.
There's going to be both. The silt fence will be up as part of that's one of the conditions that you require is there to be the erosion sediment control plan in place, with silt fence in place to, you know, to prevent that. So that's already part of the
So to
condition.
build the stormwater retention areas and so forth, and then have them get sedimented up with the dirt moving and so forth, I think would be much more detrimental than the silt fence just being in place, finish the stormwater after the garage and dirt moving's done, so
Well-
that that doesn't get destroyed, because it will never, it'll get put in, and it'll get destroyed, and then it'll never get fixed.
Very well could. Yeah.
I understand that, but the permit's good for 2 years. I don't want to see this strung out, this down to protect that lake at the bottom of that driveway for 2 years. I don't.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I tend to agree with Rock in terms of it could get filled with dirt, right? And we lose the advantage. But for construction, they would have a permit for construction, right? And the fencing would be required as part of that, right? So it's not really like the 2-year duration thing. If they start construction, they have to have that to mitigate that from happening, right? Is that correct?
Clarify that.
It was just a thought. That's
No, and the thought is a good one, but I'm trying to, I kind of think we have it covered with the permit requirement, and that's what
I think we'll do two rows of silt fence, one above the driveway and then one below it. Because a lot of the dirt work is going to be up above that T if you, well,
Yeah, yep.
Let me go to that survey quick.
so, yep, well, down further by the T to the right, in front by the house right there. So if we do one row there, because that's where a lot of the dirt work's going to be, and then we can do another one on the other side of the driveway closer to the lake. So as a double barrier.
And to answer your question, John, it's upon substantial completion of the project, is when the stormwater plan has to be done. So it's not necessarily permit, when the
No.
permit expires, but it's also upon substantial completion. So if they build their house within 1 year, or
Garage.
build their garage within 1 year, yes, then it has to be done by the time the garage is done.
No, Madam Chair, my question was not the stormwater plan. It's the silk fencing to control
For the
the
construction.
erosion. That has to be part of the construction process, right?
And that's part of the permit, yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
that's-
Okay. So it's the case that that has to be in place when they're building to address Sue's concern. That's what I'm after, and I'm
It
hearing.
sounds like that's in place and part of the plan.
That's condition number 2 that's on the table right now for consideration. That's condition number 2.
Okay. But then,
Thank you.
I have a question for the applicant. You were going to put a silt fence here and here. Is that silt fencing going along that whole T by the shore? Because
In front of you, right in front of you, there's that pointer.
You have a pointer down there.
if we get a rain before this is implemented, whatever you're going to do there, any water coming down here, if you don't have silt fencing along this whole thing, it's going to run into
It
the
is
lake.
blacktop and not, so you won't have any erosion if it was a gravel driveway.
No, but that's fine to go the entire length. That's not an issue.
Yeah, okay.
I'd like to see it go along that whole T, just to stop any water coming off that asphalt driveway right into the lake. It will prevent it.
I thought they had to do the whole thing.
So, Madam Chair, maybe to address Sue's concern, and since the applicant's agreeable, can we just amend condition 2 to be clear that we want that silk fencing to go across to prevent the issue, whatever language we want to add to that, and they're agreeable to that, and that would address the concern. Does that work? So I would add that to my motion.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Right.
So there's a motion on the floor, and did we get a second? I don't believe so.
Andy seconded.
Oh, Andy, I'm sorry. So there's a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Have a good
you.
afternoon.
Thank you.
Have a great holiday weekend, by the way.
If you could just wait just one moment, I got ahead of myself too. I just want you to need to verify 4 items. Do you know what is being approved tonight?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand the conditions that are required as part of the approval?
Yes?
And do you understand that you must obtain permits now from Land Services Department before construction begins? And do you understand what is being approved tonight is final? Any future changes to what is being approved tonight, such as structure size, height, or location, must be approved by this board? And this means that you would be required to submit a new application, pay the appropriate fees, and provide an updated survey and any other required information with the new request. Staff cannot modify or change what has been approved by this board. Thank you.
Understand.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Boy, it'll be nice and warm.
Okay, moving on to our first item of new business, we have Pelican Beach Holdings LLC. They're in front of us for 3 items of action: land use map amendment, conditional use permit, and preliminary plat. Hello.
Cindy Hitty, Stonemark Land Surveying, P.O. Box 874, Pequot Lakes, Minnesota.
Josh Miles, Pelican Beach Holdings, 26746 County Road 4, Nisswa, Minnesota.
Thank you. And Chris, will you go ahead and read the
Yep,
application?
thank you, Madam Chair, I appreciate that. So the applicant tonight, for these 3 applications tonight is Pelican Beach Holdings. Authorized agent is Cindy with Stonemark Land Surveying. We have the property owner here, Josh Miles. Parcel number in question is 7304-0571, located at 26746 County Road 4 in Nisswa. This is located in Lake Edward Township, Section 4. This is located on Pelican Township. We're going to zoom down, look at a couple of maps to get everybody, make sure we're all located in the right spot. So you got County Road 4 here, you got County Road 18 that runs east and west, and the property is the highlighted one in yellow here. And then if you scroll down, this is the land use map. This will give you an idea of what the zoning is out there. So the area that's in blue would be considered the shoreline district, the residential shoreline district. The area that's in yellow will be the rural residential 2.5 acre zoning. And then the area in red here is the property in question, which is waterfront commercial. So we have just a couple other things I want to hit on. One is that the impervious coverage for the lot is at 11% as documented on the survey completed by Stonemark. We have 3 requests tonight before the board. One is a land use map amendment from waterfront commercial to a residential zoning, which would include shoreline district and rural residential 2.5, a conditional use permit for resort conversion, and then a preliminary plat for 11 residential lots and 2 common lots. I want to be very clear that there are no variances required for this application. I'm going to go to page 52 just to look at the survey that was provided. This is going to show you the location of all the existing structures in the property and information as far as impervious calculations and all the information as required is located there. We did have a doc exhibit provided. This would be on page 52, which would show historic exhibit, doc exhibit, and along with a map from Google Earth as part of that. So there's a couple things that I want to be clear. There's definitely a process when going through these types of requests. And so the process starts in Crow Wing County with what's called a development review team meeting. That was on March 9th of 2026. That's really a staff level meeting where staff and the applicant and their surveyor attend those meetings. We invite DNR to be present. We invite the township to be present. Township was not there at that meeting. They're welcome to attend, and we just take a half hour. We talk about the application and give them the next steps as far as application, what that process would look like. So then they submitted their application. Let's see, I think I have the wrong date written down. What was the application date for that, Stacy, you remember? Let me look on my yeah, I misspoke. So March 9th was the development review team meeting, and the application submitted was April 3rd. So I had that incorrectly. So then we have a requirement by statute for a few things that we're required to do. One is that Minnesota Statute 1599 has a requirement that applications need to have a decision made within 60 days. The county does have the opportunity to extend that by an additional 60 days if there is a intended purpose for why a decision can't be made. So a lot of times I think people wonder why maybe it seems like some of these are, maybe they feel like there's rushed or they didn't have enough chance or an opportunity to maybe provide some feedback that they feel, and that's because that's how it's defined that we have to follow in Minnesota Statute 394.26. So anytime there's a land use map amendment or a plat, we have to mail notification to all properties within a half mile of the property. For a conditional use permit, it's a quarter mile, and so those letters were mailed out by our office on May 8th of 2026. We're also required to publish this in the Brainerd Dispatch on May 9th. Is when that was published. And so by statute, we were required to send notice out 10 days prior to the meeting. So we typically do ours 13 days, and we put it in the mail on that Friday. It would have been May 8th, a Friday. So just wanted to make sure everybody kind of understood the process for how we do things. The Planning Commission always has the discretion to decide if they want to table applications or require more information and push applications off to the next meeting. But we always have to make sure that we're compliant with Minnesota Statute 1599 to make decisions timely. I wanted to point out too, and it was mentioned earlier by the chair, but the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment does make recommendations to the county board for the land use map amendment and for the preliminary plat tonight, but they do make the final decision on that conditional use permit. And so what we have before you tonight is what's considered to be a resort conversion, and this follows there's a rule, Minnesota Rule 6120.3800 subdivision 5D has a provision for resort conversions to a residential use, and then we also have a section in the county ordinance 34.13 for resort conversions, and so I wanted to make sure everybody understood that that's the process that we use, that we're following for this. I know For some folks, they remember when this application came through back in, I believe it was in 2021. And just wanted to be clear that this is the same property and a similar request, but the county ordinance is different now than what it was back when that was, that original application was submitted and ultimately was withdrawn. So back in May of 2024, the county board changed the ordinance that we have today, this 34.13, to align with Minnesota Rule 6120.3800 subdivision 5D. So the previous ordinance had some provisions in place that required any resort conversions to meet certain, the current lot size requirements and density numbers and setbacks and variances. And so that's why that previous application had that, those requirements. That's no longer in the ordinance. The ordinance now is following the standards that are set in the Minnesota Shoreline Rules, which would be, as I mentioned, Minnesota Rule 6120. I did want to mention as well that as you look at the application, obviously there's permit history, and so we have things to look at that have happened in the past. And one of the comments that's been brought up recently is the conditional use permit from 1991 with a condition 15 that stated the resort must comply to zoning regulations of that date. And so what this application is saying is that they are following the zoning regulations to date by applying for a resort conversion that is allowed by Minnesota Rule 6120 and within the land use ordinance itself, Article 34.13. I'm just going to highlight really just a quick high overview of what's allowed, of what the requirements are for 34.13. So what it says is that for conversions to residential development, proposed conversions shall be evaluated using the same procedures and standards in Article 33. All inconsistencies between the existing features of development and those standards shall be identified. And there shall be no minimum lot size or width requirements for lots recreated to contain existing dwelling or dwelling units. So that means that you have to identify, and that's been placed on the survey, identify the inconsistencies, and then you had to identify if there's any deficiencies with water supply, sewage treatment, impervious coverage, open space, and shore rec facilities. There's been discussion in that as far as conditions in the CUP that have been recommended by staff. You also have to analyze and look at the shore and the bluff impact zone. If there's any correction as part of that conversion, there's some conditions recommended from staff that would address some of that. And then the big one is D, 34.13D. It says existing dwelling unit or dwelling site densities that exceed standards in Article 33 of this ordinance may be allowed to continue, but must not be allowed to be increased in size, area, volume, or height, either at the time of conversion or in the future. Efforts must be made during the conversion to limit impacts of high densities and improving vegetative screening, centralizing the shore rec facilities, making sure you have a compliant septic system, and that. And so what that means is that the cabins that are on the parcel or on that property today in the future can never be expanded. They can never be made bigger from a square footage standpoint. They can never have an increase in height. That's spelled out in the ordinance, spelled out in the conditional use permit as well. And so it does not mean that they are not allowed to remove those structures and rebuild a structure in that current footprint, meeting the same height and the same size. They would be allowed to do that as well. So based on the ordinance and the Minnesota Rule 6120, staff feels that the request meets the requirements for resort conversion. I think the big question that's come up, we've actually had a lot of comments that have been submitted, and I think it's been very appreciated with all the perspective from the public that has some concerns and questions about the development is what is the number of permanent mooring sites to be allowed. We do have a letter from the DNR, May 14th, that concurs with the applicant that 11 would be the number that would be allowed to the conditional use permit. If you look on that survey, you'll see that the plan that they have proposed is going to be to have a centralized location for where the permanent mooring moorings would be located. And this would be on a centralized dock and would not be allowed to have multiple docks to have those permanent mooring spots. Like I said, we have received a lot of comments from the public. Just want everybody to know that the Planning Commission has received those. When we get those in, those are sent out that same day to the applicant and to the Planning Commission, so they have read through those, and they have all that information included in the packet and the information that's been provided by the applicant. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chris. Does the board have some questions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may ask one. Chris, if, maybe for my benefit, maybe it'd be for the benefit of all. We have 3 separate requests: the land use map amendment, the conditional use permit, and the preliminary plat. What's the interrelationship of those 3 requests? I mean, if any one is denied or et cetera, could you just maybe address that, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, John, for bringing that up. So the land use map amendment is to, in essence, change the zoning from a waterfront commercial down to a residential zoning on it. And so that is needed to be able to address the residential conditional use permit that they're requesting. So if that were to be denied by the county board, there's a provision in the conditional use permit conditions that we've made that says that the conditional use permit is null and void. So for them to have that residential development, property would need to be zoned residential. The preliminary plat is such that each of those individual cabins would have their own real estate, have their own parcel, and then they would have a common shared open space, and then they would have a homeowner association, covenants and declarations to manage the open space, the roads, the septic system, all those sorts of things. So that's the interplay between the 3.
And Madam Chair, if I may, and if the conditional use permit wasn't approved, probably the need for the preliminary plat would be different, right?
Correct. So and at the same time, the need for the land use map amendment. So the first consideration would be for you to talk about the land use map amendment and make that recommendation to the county board. And then if you're in favor, if you think it's a good idea to go to that residential zoning, then you would consider the conditional use permit, and then you consider that preliminary plat. So, but if you're thinking that this should stay waterfront commercial, then you would probably look to findings to want to deny the conditional use permit and to deny the preliminary plat if you think it needs to stay, if you think the better use for the property is to be left waterfront commercial.
Thank you.
Thank you for that additional clarification, Chris. Any other questions for staff?
Well, just, Madam Chair, Chris, are we the public testimony going to be on all 3 at once?
Correct, Madam Chair. Sue, that's a great point. I meant to mention that. So yeah, when people want to make their public testimony, it would be great to address the land use map amendment requests, the conditional use, and the preliminary plat.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Hearing none, I will take it back to the applicants to see if there's anything that you'd like to add.
Madam Chair, we would like to add a few things.
Thank you.
My glasses on now. All right, so just a clarification on the resort. Our clients have operated the resort since it's been purchased. They have had a food and lodging license each year leading up to the summer. Josh and Cassie are living on the property and intend to stay on the property and have a vested interest in the future of the lake and the property itself. The intention is not to rent out, to have VRBOs, RV campers, camping of any kind on the property, and I think that was mentioned as a request by a couple of letters, and Josh and Cassie are agreeable to that because they don't want it themselves. The lake interest itself, running a resort is 15 weeks of operation from opening and fishing to the Labor Day. And that's resulting in, a lot of different boats coming in every week, where if this is transitioned to residential, you are only having 11 boats come in, and they're coming in typically all season, so they're dropped into the lake and staying there for the season and then leaving before the ice freezes, right? Or the lake freezes. So a lot less opportunity for invasive species coming into, you try to do a good job as a resort owner, but that it's just more likely if had to happen if you had a lot of boats coming in and out. You're talking about potentially 100 boats coming in for the season. So turning this into a residential development or a property will limit that significantly. The conversion itself, like Chris had said, that the cabins have to stay the size that they are, and there's no negotiation on that. That is what it is. And so that is also a positive on the property. If it stays as a resort, you know, there's an opportunity to change the size and improve the property as a full-scale resort. And then finally, the neighbors directly to the north and directly to the south have, they're in favor of the application with some conditions that we've addressed previously, and we just are hopeful that you see that as a positive as well. Josh, do you have anything else?
No, I think that pretty well covers our position.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for the applicant? Hearing none, we will then open up this request for public testimony. And as a reminder, we'll be addressing all 3 of the applications during the public testimony portion. Is there anyone in the courtroom who would like to address these applications? Please come forward to the microphone at the podium and state your name and address for the record. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name's Cody Schmidt. I'm an attorney at Gamello Pearson Law here in Baxter. And just as a point of administrative stuff, Chris, your nameplate is in front of Nicolette.
Oh, we switched.
Just so you know. So as Ms. Hitty mentioned, a lot of that is, I think everything was basically accurate. I represent the Pansing Plummer Brooks Family Cabin Group. I have a couple members here today. They had drinks with Mr. Miles and his wife the other night. They are generally in support of the plan. I think we think that there's some discussion that could take place amongst the neighbors that could potentially strengthen support for this plan, this project that I think just with the short turnaround of notice, they haven't been able to have yet. So there is a request to table this today for 30. I know some people have requested 60 days. We support that request to table this today to allow for more conversation to take place. The concerns were accurately represented by Ms. Hitty. Like I said, we're generally in support of the plan. There are some things that we would like to see in the CUP just to memorialize these concerns that the people that are doing the project have in the declarations. Declarations can change. We all know that. So putting no short-term rentals in a declaration, well, that doesn't really prevent it. If the people later on decide that they decide to sell and some new people come in, they could change those declarations. If this is what the intent is going to be, I think we want to see that memorialized where it can't be changed later on without coming back through a public process like this. Those things are primarily the docking issue, no RVs. They're outlined in the letter. Did you guys, we had submitted it late, but I think all the concerns are laid out in there that if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer those, but I don't think you guys need me to go through those for you. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. As to the rezoning, my clients are in support of that. Changing it from commercial to residential, I think benefits everybody in the area. The CUP is, I think, the primary area where there's conversation from my group around additions, changes, corrections. There's some stuff in the declarations that we'd like to see cleaned up. I don't think Block 2, Lot 1 is addressed in the declarations. It would just need to be added to the common property exhibit, I think. So there's just some small things like that that we'd like a chance to see the declarations more than 5 days before the final meeting, if possible. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, then I don't have anything else for you today.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions?
No.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address these applications? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Brad Halberstadt. I am 4 properties to the north, 26838 County Road 4. I'm the one who clogged your email up with documents that were submitted in support of the arguments that we had made in the memorandum, as well as to make sure that we had a complete as possible record for a property that goes back and has been fought over the last 35 years, and then again back in 2021, when this conditional use permit was resurrected back from 1991. I'll start, I have 3 main points to talk about. First is the notice point, which I appreciate the statutory references on why things really seem to move quick. If the record was complete, I'd be saying, okay, well, if we've got everything we need, why wait? But there are some missing pieces of information, and since you said you read all of the comments, I won't bore you with what I believe is missing from the record. I do believe that the application does contain a misstatement on condition 16, which it says was omitted, when in fact, if you go back in 1991, that condition was revised to recommend to future boards that any actions that increase density in the area of people in the area be denied. So the application technically has a mistake in it. But that being said, the notice piece of it, we had 37 comments from neighbors last year, plus the Lake Association and the township, as well as we've got inconsistent positions from the DNR. Now, maybe that's because additional rules changed or evidence somehow changed or more evidence was provided. But the record needs to be cleared up on those points. And I'll talk about that when we talk about mooring. But I said there were 3 issues I wanted to talk about. One was the notice, and I join in recommending or asking that, in fact, I just got a text from one of the residents on the lake who said they couldn't get in to make their comments. So I think it's wise in light of the issues of supplementing the record and giving everyone an opportunity to respond, that this be tabled for 30 days to give everybody a full chance to go back. There's so much information. I'm sure you appreciate that after having been bombarded with it on information that we believe is relevant to this issue. So since we have limited time, issue number 2 is related to those conditions and the conversion request in general on the property. It was stated that, well, that condition 15, which I outlined in my memo, is clear that, well, the zoning conditions today include resort conversion. You can't read that condition in that way and come to that conclusion. It wouldn't have been in there if that's what it meant. Obviously, the conditions that exist today would apply to anything that happens. You dig deeper, and it's in my memo, and if you've got it, I hate to bother you with repeating it, but Marion Pelto, who voted for approval of that CUP, stated specifically that these units weren't supposed to be sold individually, and that if the property ceases to be used as a resort, it would revert to single-family residential use. You can see from that map, there's no way this number of properties would, and in fact, that was many of the arguments that you heard or were going to hear in 2021 when we talked about what was being requested when they asked for variances instead of saying, whoops, that didn't work, let's try just doing a resort conversion only and not ask for permission to do anything that's way outside anything that's allowed under the current regulations. Now, I appreciate the fact that resorts have had a tough time, and I acknowledge that, you know what, we've got something in this land use ordinance that allows conversions. And so we should honor that. And the only exception in this case is we've got a condition that said that everyone agreed to, including the owner at the time and the court up above. I'm probably coming over my time, and you're going to kick me out anyway.
30 seconds.
All right. I rely on what's in the motion. I trust that you've read that. The mooring issues are substantial. I'm asking that the record be supplemented to prove grandfathering that's required under the statute so that we don't have an arbitrary and capricious decision without that record being established. They should have the full opportunity to provide that evidence. from 1991 showing that they were legal conforming mooring spaces that were established and put into the lake prior to 1991. That evidence is admittedly not in the record.
Madam Chair.
I'm out.
We're at time, please.
Okay.
All right. I appreciate the attention to everything that I submitted.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
comments, sir. Is there anyone else in the courtroom who would like to address this application? Anyone? See no one in the courtroom, we'll go to online testimony. Is there anyone online who would like to address these applications? No one online?
Yep, we have one, it looks like.
I thought that we did. Okay. Daniel Panzi,
Yeah, hi.
please state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure, Daniel Panzing, 4040 Ellington Avenue in Western Springs, Illinois, 60558.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
I also submitted something today. I presume you've seen that. I'm certainly not an attorney, but I am strongly opposed to this conversion, particularly because I think a number of things were misleading that were presented to the DNR and their decision around the dock. I've been at that on that lake for 55 years. I'm 55 years old. I've been up there. There have never been 11 boats at that, or if there were, it was maybe for an afternoon. It's patently false that there were 11 boats continuously there, that that wouldn't change substantially the usage of this property and the enjoyment of the lake that we all have. I won't repeat everything that I got into, but I do want to strongly urge that be looked at. And as part of that, and I guess my primary thought here is that this really needs to be continued. There hasn't been enough time to adequately, I found, as you will see in your email, evidence to the contrary of the one picture that I saw was submitted related to the docking that shows you and shows you that there's other things like water mats and swim platforms that are being counted as 30-foot boats. There needs to be more work done and more time for the neighbors and others to respond to this, as it'll have a significant impact on our ability to enjoy the lake as we have historically. So I would ask you to please and urge you to please defer your decision on this. I would say for 60 days, that's what the deferral and that's what the time frame in the statute's for, I assume. But at a minimum for 30 days to let this process for people who just became aware of this 5 days ago have time to build their response and come back to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who would like to address this application? Thomas Panzi? Thomas, are you there?
I am.
Please state
Tom
your name and
Panzing.
address for the record. Thank you.
Tom Panzing. I live in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm a part owner of the property to the north of the Pelican Beach property. I just want to clarify that the decision not to object to this application by our family is conditioned on a number of changes to the conditional use permit, which I haven't heard explained or accepted or approved at this point. But I just want to be certain that you understand that there's been discussion and there are 4 or 5 or 6 points that I understand have been concurred with some of the people that are interested in this, but I would want to be certain that that's addressed if you decide negatively as to the extension. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who wishes to address these applications? I think that's it. Okay, we'll bring it back then to the applicant to see if you'd like to address any of the comments made thus far.
Not at this time.
Okay, then that brings it back to the board for further discussion. We've heard a number of suggestions, that this be tabled for a minimum of 30 days for a further opportunity for people to address their concerns, and have also heard information regarding the application, so further discussion.
Madam Chair? Oh, go ahead.
I mean, I understand concerns. I mean, but the short-term rental concern, the mooring concern as far as making sure that it is tied to the CUP is already addressed in condition number 6 underneath the proposed conditional use permit. I think the RVs, campers, that can be addressed through additional conditions put on the conditional use permit. So a lot of the concerns, I'd like to have Chris, if you would please, comment on the gentleman's concerns about the 1991 conditional use permit that said if this ceased to become a resort, that it had to become a single family, whatever a single family dwelling would be. But
Yeah, right.
just conditional uses can be changed, and that's why we're
Right.
here.
Well, and this is a new conditional use permit, so this is not a extension of or a modification or amendment to the one from 1991. And so, I think we can all have, what was the intent and what was what it said was that the CUP from 91 condition 15 noted that the resort must comply to zoning regulations of that date. And so I think we can have discussions and frankly disagreements how we want to look at that and to read that. And I can totally respect the attorney's perspective on that. But at the same time, I think people have the opportunity to apply and to go through due process. We've had situations in the past where people have said, we're going to give you a variance for a deck today, but you can never come back and apply for a variance ever again. I don't think that I think is something that you're not allowed to do. And so a decision such as that, there are certain things that tie the hands of future boards from being able to make decisions down the road on certain applications. And so, again, I know that's not the answer that, maybe that folks want to hear, but that's how I'm looking at it today. And what I'd like to do, though, I think might make more sense would be to walk through some of the conditions that we've put in, that we're having, that are part of the packet, and then we can talk about some of the conditions that were brought up as far as some of the comments and see if there's some ways that you think we could add or modify some of these, because I think the CUP is the document that really is the driving document. I mean,
I agree.
the zoning map and the plat that's more, they're important, but I think the CUP is what's really driving the bus on this.
I think it would be helpful to bring up those.
Before you do that, Chris, I'd just like to point out, in my opinion, the density is not changing in this. There's 11 cabins down there. There's going to be 11 dwelling structures. So density, to me, is not changing at all. So I don't think, it's going to stay the same. It's just that it might be, you got 11 individually owned cabins, whereas a resort, you got 11 cabins that can be number of people in them. I think as far as, I agree with what Cindy said, as far as boat traffic in and out, I think with the 11 residential and the individual boats, it'd be less than if it was a resort and somebody could come in and rent a cabin and they could bring 2 boats in with them. And then you got a lot more boat traffic. So I just wanted to comment that I don't think the density has changed at all.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Before we get to the nitty-gritty of the conditions, I just want to ask 3 things. One is, to your earlier point, this is a new CUP.
Correct.
And in adopting it, we would be replacing any existing CUP, kind of.
The CUP that is there is still, it wouldn't replace it.
No, but this would be the prevailing CUP for the property, right? So we do that. We create new CUPs for things that happen. We do that somewhat regularly. It comes before us.
Correct.
So that's one thing I want to be clear. 2, to your other point, I'm just not aware of anything that allows a board or a decision of a board to commit a future board to that decision. I'm involved in town government, and we don't get to do that. You can't say, we're adopting this and never again, shall anyone change what we adopt, it'd be like the county board adopting an ordinance and saying a future county board couldn't change the ordinance. I mean, so I don't see, unless you tell me, that there's anything in the record that prevents this board from adopting the CUP based on the record. I mean, I understand, I appreciate the comments, but I don't think they're binding on the decision in front of us unless somebody has some case law or something that would tell us that. And then the third thing I have a question on is the whole issue of people talking about covenants and wanting time to get more stuff included here and so on. But I think in condition 14 I read that we state that the county is not responsible for the enforcement of covenants, et cetera. And I think our track record is we try not to incorporate that, or we're careful about what we incorporate into our conditions because we want our conditions to be appropriate to what we're considering, right? Relative to the county ordinances, et cetera. Is that the right understanding?
Correct, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just a question for staff. I was aware of a situation where I live where a similar thing transpired, and the footprints had to remain the same of the buildings. But what I saw happen was all of a sudden just a blossoming of those 8x10 storage sheds, like multiple. I mean, it just was ridiculous. So I'm curious, what is that something we have anything to consider? What could somebody put next to their house in a situation like this? I mean, we got full-time people now going to be moving in. They're going to have a lot more stuff. Where's that going to go? So that's my concern.
You know, I think that's a valid point that you bring up, but at the same time, when they're buying into a situation like this, they're limited to what they have for that. So, I mean, from an ordinance standpoint, they could potentially build a 10 by 16 shed on each, you know, if there's room on those parcels, but that would be really limited to, that would be it, because there really isn't room to build. You're not allowed to do any other expansions. So, you know, it really, you know, I think we see there's other of these across the county and other areas, and they really end up being a seasonal use. They're not really designed to be used year round in that. So that's the expectation that, you know, I think you'd see here. So, but I can go through the conditions if you'd like and just give you an idea. Then we can talk about some of the conditions that have been brought up and maybe see if there's a way to amend or add or modify that. So we'll just work through the conditions that are up on the screen for everybody to take a look at. This conditional use permit is for the conversion of Pelican Beach Resort to a residential use and a plat consisting of 13 total lots, which would be 11 residential dwelling lots and 2 common lots. They give the Land Service Department permission to enter the property. If they do any work out there for the construction, they would need a permit. This conditional use permit would be null and void if the county board denies the land use map amendment request from waterfront commercial to shoreline district. A plat must be approved by the county board if the individual lots should be sold individually. The development is approved for 11 permanent mooring spaces and is to be consolidated to a common dock as shown on the certificate of survey. I think the one-day dock is up for discussion, I think as we've had some discussion with the applicant, I think they'd be willing to remove that and just have the one dock only and not have that the day use dock. Condition number 7 is an uncontrolled beaching of watercraft. Instead of saying should we change to must be prohibited as part of the open space preservation as condition of the plat of the land use ordinance. All concrete structures in the lake that have moored boats must be removed and coordinated with the DNR. Existing dwelling units shall be allowed to be continued, but must not be allowed to be increased in size, area, volume, or height, either at the time of conversion or any time in the future. Existing dwelling units shall be allowed to be reconstructed in the exact footprint of the dwelling unit with no expansion, as previously mentioned, allowed. The survey dated May 13th, 2026 will be used to document this information for future reference. A stormwater plan for the property must be implemented and validated that it's effective according to our ordinance. They'd have 12 months to implement that. We want there to be a shoreline buffer restoration plan should be submitted to the department, which would allow a 10-foot no maintenance buffer behind the existing beach, going 70% of the lot, so it would mean 30% of the lot would be allowed to be left open for the shoreline recreational use area. There's an existing swing set that is in shore impact zone 1 that would need to be removed to do that. And then number 14 is that they would be required to establish a owners association through covenants and declarations and to be recorded at the time of plat. The time the plat is recorded, she'll state that each of the 11 dwelling lots has a 1/11th ownership in the common lot and will dictate how the association will manage common infrastructure, septic systems, road maintenance, dock maintenance, and other commonly owned infrastructure. To be clear, the county is not responsible for enforcing the recorded covenants and declarations. I would recommend, from a staff perspective, we did get some information today and with some recommended conditions. One would be that there would be no allowed short-term rental at the resort for any of the cabins for less than 30 days. So if they want to rent month to month, that's something that we wouldn't regulate, but anything less than 30 days, they wouldn't be able to do. They also recommend that it would prohibit the use of RVs, campers, and tents on the property for use and prohibit the parking of those as well. And we did, I think, cover the beaching of watercraft. I think uncontrolled beaching of watercraft would be prohibited. So I think we did have a conversation, as we received this, we did have a conversation with the applicant, and they're amenable to these additional conditions as recommended. So I think it would be a good addition to fill out maybe some holes that some of that conditional use permit, unless you always have the opportunity as requested to also table their application to the next month's meeting. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chair, could I just quickly, and are you also saying that condition 6 would be now 11 permanent mooring spaces, period, and the issue of the one-day use dock would be deleted?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion?
Madam Chair, I have a question for the applicant, if I could, please.
Yes.
One of the concerned parties brought up Lot 1, Block 2 has not had anything like in the covenants addressing what is the plans for Lot 1, Block 2. That's the property across the road. Are you going to be addressing what that's going to be in the covenants, or?
Yeah, that's this one right here, the pole building.
With the existing pole building or anything else over there, are you asking?
So it's going to stay as is? I mean, it's not, I'm just, some of the concerns the neighbors have, okay, what is the potential use going to be? Because it's not addressed in the covenants and declarations for Lot 1, Block 2. I'm just asking if that's something you might consider addressing in the covenants before, as to what that should remain, or how it's going to be used.
So the use is going to stay the same? Or we will, I don't know if we know what,
Okay.
But we'll make sure that there's something in the declaration before you approve.
Okay, I just is a concern.
Madam Chair, let me ask this question. Would you like for them to come back to amend the CUP if they want to do any construction on the other side of the road? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, I do believe that would be the right way of handling that. If down the future you want to expand, or whoever wants to put, let's just say more a cabin or something over there to go with this, that any future development of Lot 1, Block 2 would have to come back to be approved by.
So that can be added to the conditions?
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I see this as where you're going to park your boat trailers and so forth, rather than down on the commons area, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So I think you would just
kind of need someplace to, if you've got a postage stamp lot, you can't really put your boat in the lake and then
I think what Sue
trailer up alongside.
Sue, is what you're saying, just the construction of buildings with you want?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, so I don't think it would prohibit the storing trailers. It would just be for any sort of construction and plan to build would have to come back and amend the
There's-
CUP.
You know, there's one pole building on there, but I know they're using it for parking and stuff, but that could change down the road. I just want something in there that protects, not protects, but, you know,
Calls out what
yeah,
Lot 1, Block 2 is.
yep.
So, Madam Chair, I mean, that condition would basically be saying if they create a new use for Lot 1, Block 2, other than what's currently being used, they'd need to come back.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that what that's what you're saying?
Wording it
Yes.
better.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
For under discussion, I want to come back and maybe have a question for the applicant and for us. On the request to table this for 30 days, typically when we table something, we're looking for more information. We think there's something incomplete. By itself, my own perspective is this isn't more complicated than many that we see, right? We get a lot of input, we process it. By itself, it's got a number of conditions. We've had some that have had a lot more conditions. So, you know, by itself. But I'm not overly driven by the idea that we need to table just because of the volume of input, et cetera. But one person addressed the fact that there's been conversations and coming up with ideas of how to make this more palatable to people, and maybe ideas that you might accept as positive changes. So I guess my request is, you've had those conversations. Are you thinking that is a good idea and that you would like to have more conversations that could impact this, so you'd be willing to table it for 30 days and have that, and then bring any changes back that we would consider? Is that a reasonable request, or what are your thoughts?
You know, it would certainly be a reasonable request and would respect whatever the board decided would be the, you know, in the best interest of all the parties involved. Our preference would certainly be to, you know, address the concerns of, within reason, that we've tried to do so already, including, you know, some of the aforementioned VRBOs, camping, you know, eliminating the day dock. So, I mean, from our perspective, we've tried to be good stewards of the property and of respecting, you know, some requests that weren't necessarily part of the variant or the application that we're willing to do. So candidly, our preference would be to get a result on it today, due to the fact that we feel like we have addressed a lot of this questions and concerns. But again, to be clear, we would certainly respect whatever the board deemed necessary or prudent for moving forward.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think with the, what is our total now, Chris? 17 or 18 conditions with what we've added?
17.
Yeah, we have 14.
17.
7 with the addition, well, you know, I think the 17 conditions that we placed on here has pretty much addressed all the concerns.
The list is fairly comprehensive.
And I'm ready to proceed forward with this.
Any other comments from the board?
I want to know where the little kids are going to fish if you take out that day dock.
Kind of wondered that myself.
What's the harm in that one little dock?
Well, and then when kids are swimming and stuff like that, parents are, it's easier for them to keep an eye on it. Our preference regarding that, we would be willing to make, again, that concession, but our preference would be to leave that small, short dock there, so when kids are playing in the water or fishing, their parents are frankly able to keep a better eye on them. And with the conditions that there's no mooring whatsoever of any watercrafts on that dock and no use of it beyond kind of what Rock here has pointed out. So as that came up, that was genuinely my initial thought was, you know, it's certainly nice. Is it entirely necessary? No. Is it nice for the reasons we're describing? Yes. Is it really affect things, in my opinion, for what we're discussing? I don't think it does. But again, in the interest of being amicable, we're open to that discussion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to state, I think a day dock for kids that are swimming, it's a lot more safe to have a day dock for swimmers, for kids and stuff, than kids using a dock where you have 11 boats that could be coming in and out of there. They could, you know, I think just for safety for swimmers and everything, I think that day dock should stay.
I would agree with that.
Madam Chair, I support that day dock. I'm part of an association over on Gull Lake, and unfortunately, we don't have that. So you get kids playing around the big docks, and you know, kids, you can't see them, can't find them. I think that's just imperative for just a public safety consideration.
Thank you for bringing that up, Brock.
Madam Chair, I think the proper order for, if we're ready to consider applications, would be to start with the land use map amendment, then the conditional use permit, and then the preliminary plat. If you're ready for that, I think that's the order that we should go in.
Okay. Are we ready for that? Okay, so land use map amendment.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to recommend the county board amend the, from the land use, approve the land use map amendment from waterfront commercial to shoreland district.
And Madam, just to include the residential, including shoreline and RR 2.5. Because we have that part on the shoreline, yeah.
Yep.
And just to be clear, the findings from the staff report are located on page 95 of the packet.
Yes, with the findings of facts listed in the staff report.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Brock. Further discussion? Okay, before we take action on the land use map application, I need to verify one item with you, and that is, do you understand that tonight we are making a recommendation to the county board for approval of your land use map amendment request? The county board does have final approval over this request, and the next meeting is the 9th?
June 9th.
June 9th at 9 o'clock in this room.
You do.
Thank you. Okay, we will then proceed with the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we will talk about the conditional use permit.
The findings for that are located on page 150 of the packet.
Yep.
Any additions or modifications to those findings?
But before we proceed with it, could you just, so we're all on the same page, identify the 3 additions, the wording of the 3 additions, and then number 6, I think we covered, changed, so that we all know what those 3 additions are?
Correct.
I'm sure if that'd be okay.
From the conditions? Correct. All right, so condition number 6 is for the permanent mooring spaces. We are going to keep the day use dock, is what it sounds like, is what I'm hearing. And then adding the conditions were that it would be prohibited to utilize a short-term rental less than 30 days on any of the units on the property. Anything less than 30 days is prohibited. And then it's also prohibited that the use of RVs, campers, tents, and other type sleeping facilities of the property is prohibited. It's prohibited to park RVs, trailers, et cetera, on the property. And then we covered the beaching of watercraft. Correct. And then the other one was to, the last one that we had just talked about was any future expansion or future uses, development on Block 2, Lot 1, the CUP must be amended if it's something different than the current use. But I do want to make sure, though, that as we have that condition, that the lot across the road can be, that you're allowing them to store boat trailers and that on across the road.
Correct.
Just want to be clear about that. Okay. So those will be the conditions that, as we've discussed this evening.
Thank you.
Chris and board, on Madam Chair, On number 6, it's allowed one-day dock. Do we need to stipulate in there will be no mooring sites allowed on that dock?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I think what we can do on that, on the condition for number 6, to state that the day use dock is not allowed for no permanent mooring on the day use dock.
Yes.
Yep, we can do that.
Thank you. Further discussion? Any other comments from the board? I'm hearing silence.
No, if there aren't any other comments, I'd be ready to make a motion.
Okay.
And the motion I would make, Madam Chair, is to approve the conditional use permit, given the findings of fact in support of the conditional use permit, the survey that's been submitted, the staff report, and what I believe is 17 conditions.
18 with that.
18 conditions. So did we separate out prohibiting tents, campers, and parking as 2 separate ones?
We did.
Okay, so 18 conditions. And that would be my motion.
And based on the on-site that we did?
Yes, and the staff report, which the on-site's part of, and the survey, et cetera.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. Any further discussion? Any further? Hearing none, before we take final action on your conditional use permit application, I need to verify 3 items with you. Do you understand what is being approved tonight?
Yes, we do.
And do you understand the conditions that we just went over that are required as part of the approval?
Yes, we do.
And do you understand that what is being approved tonight is final, and any future changes to what is being approved tonight must be approved by this board? This means that you would be required to submit a new application, pay the appropriate fees, and provide an updated survey and any other required information with the new request. Staff cannot modify or change what has been approved by this board.
We do.
Okay, we will then proceed with the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Madam Chair, the findings of fact for the preliminary plat are located on the screen on page 205.
Okay. Further discussion or action on this? Remember, we're making a recommendation on this.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to recommend the county board approve the preliminary plat of Pelican Beach Reserve with 13 lots, 11 residential lots, and 2 common lots, based on the findings of fact submitted in the staff report, the on-site that was conducted, and the 4 conditions in the staff report.
Can we bring up those conditions?
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second, and we'll just quickly look at those conditions that everyone, so those are in front of everyone and the audience can see as well. Okay, any further discussion?
Madam Chair, one thing that you could add as part of that final plat would be that staff would be given the opportunity to review the covenants and declarations before final plat to make sure that there aren't any discrepancies as was brought up tonight. So I think we could add that as a condition on the plat.
I could go along with that.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, we will make that addition. Any further discussion? Hearing none, before we take final action on the preliminary plat request, I need to verify the 2 items. Do you understand that tonight we're making a recommendation to the county board to approve your preliminary plat request? The county board does have final approval over this request.
We do.
And do you understand that the required conditions that we just talked about placed on the preliminary plat must be completed before applying for the final plat request?
We do.
Okay. That being said, we will then proceed with the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you to everyone for your time and input.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it.
A good afternoon. Next application on the applicant would be Sean Gregert for a variance and preliminary plat request application. Okay. Sean Gregert, Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Are they online? Doesn't look like it.
Madam Chair, maybe we can push him to the
Yeah,
end and.
we'll move on then to R&R Landscaping and Construction, Inc., Greg Rano, and that is also for variance and preliminary plat applications. And are they present online? Doesn't look like it.
Tyler is online. Tyler.
Yep.
Oh,
Tyler Pagriba, can you guys hear me?
I can now, yes, thank you. State your name and address for the record, please, Tyler.
Yep, Tyler Pagriba, address 10878 Brent Drive, Brainerd, Minnesota. Land surveyor with Widseth here to just represent Greg on the prelim plat and variance.
Okay, thank you for R&R Landscaping. Thank you very much. And can you read the request into the record, Nicole?
Yes.
I mean?
Yep. Thanks, Madam Chair. Tonight we have property owner R&R Landscaping and Construction, authorized agent Tyler Pagriba with Woodseth, parcel number 591-60504. This is in Deerwood Township, and the current land use is the Shoreland District. There are two requests tonight, Madam Chair, and I would like to suggest running the public hearing for both items together and making separate motions on each. The first request tonight is a variance for a road access of 33 feet where 66 feet is required. And the second request is a preliminary plat of Ann Lake Acres consisting of 2 lots. I'm going to go to page 240 in your packets. This property is located on Ann Lake. It's a natural environment lake, and it's just off of Swanson Road here, which connects to State Highway 6. New parcels on natural environment lakes must have a minimum lot size of 80,000 square feet, a minimum buildable area of 40,000 square feet, and a minimum lot width of 200 feet. On page 242 is the survey with the preliminary plat. Here. Swanson Road is a private road with a 33-foot access. Let's see, both parcels are currently vacant parcels and are meeting the lot size for requirements for natural environment lakes. The proposed preliminary plat meets all the requirements of the land use ordinance. And I just wanted to point out here that there was a certificate of survey that was included in your packet on page 244. I'm just going to go to that quick. This made it into our packets, and I just wanted to clarify that this was a preliminary concept that was provided by the applicant, and Lot C here that was proposed is not being proposed currently. It is only lots 1 and 2. So I just wanted to clarify this in your packet. C is a part of Lot B, back up here on this preliminary plat. There were 2 comments received from the township. One was on March 10th, recommending approval of the variance and the preliminary plat. Since that meeting, the applicant had a wetland delineation performed and added to the survey, which clarified buildable area for this. And then the applicant went back to the township and with the revised survey, and the township recommended approval again on May 11th. If the board does approve this application tonight, staff are recommending no conditions for the variance and the 5 following conditions for the preliminary plat. The first is final plat must be submitted within 12 months of preliminary plat approval by county board. 2, all applicable requirements, all applicable required improvements, Article 9.8 shall be effectively implemented. Number 3, if this plat proposes to disturb 1 acre or more of soil, a stormwater pollution prevention plan must be approved by the MPCA. 4 is documentation of plat monuments must be completed, and 5, title commitment before final plat. I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of staff? Hearing none,
I guess I have
go
one.
ahead, Rock.
Well, I don't know if I asked staff or surveyor. How are they going to get to lot 1?
Oh,
Yep, lot one has access that
Oh,
runs,
okay.
yep, just along the edge of the road there.
Okay, now I see it.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Yep.
okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to you, Tyler, if there's anything you'd like to add.
No, Nicolette did a great job, reviewing it. I don't think the applicant has any concerns with the conditions that would, be in effect.
Thank you. Okay, then at this time, we will go ahead and open this up for public testimony. Is there anyone in the courtroom who would like to address this application? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing no one, I'll go back to online. Is there anyone online who wishes to address these applications? I don't believe there's anyone online, so we will bring it back to the board, close public testimony, and bring it back for discussion and potential action.
Madam Chair, if there's no discussion, I'm ready to proceed forward.
Please go ahead.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to approve the variance for road access width of 33 feet where 66 feet is required, based on the findings of facts submitted in the staff report.
Second.
The motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we're voting, getting ready to vote on the variance right now. And Tyler, before we take final action on the variance, I need to verify 4 items with you, okay?
Yes,
Do you understand what's being approved tonight?
yes, I do.
Do you understand the conditions that are required as part of this approval?
Yes, I do.
And do you understand that you must obtain permits now from Land Services Department before construction begins?
Yes, I do.
And do you understand what is being approved tonight is final? Any future changes to what is being approved tonight, such as structure size, height, or location, must be approved by this board. This means that you would be required to submit a new application, pay the appropriate fees, and provide an updated survey and any other required information with the new request. Staff cannot modify or change what has been approved by this board.
Yes, I do.
Okay. That being said, then, we'll go ahead and proceed with the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we have the preliminary plat.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if there's no discussion, I would move a recommendation to the County Board of Approval for the preliminary plat of Ann Lake Acres consisting of 2 lots with the findings of fact in the staff report and the survey that's been provided with the 5, I believe it is, right? 5 conditions that have been presented this evening and are in the staff report.
I'll second that.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, before we take final action, I need to verify again 2 items. Tyler, do you understand that tonight we're making a recommendation to the county board to approve your preliminary plat request?
Yes, I do.
And the county board does have final approval over this request, and they will be meeting on June 9th at 9 a.m. in the courtroom here. Do you understand that the required conditions placed on the preliminary plat must be completed before applying for the final plat request?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we then will proceed with the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, any word on Sean Greggert?
He's having some tech issues. He's going to try again.
Okay, then we'll move on.
Okay, good.
We'll go ahead and move on to the next applicant, which would be Linda and Philip Tidd for preliminary plat. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kevin McCormick with Land Design Solutions, 11821 Lake Trail, Cross Lake, Minnesota, representing the Tidds this afternoon.
Thank you. And Nicolette, would you please read in the request to the record, for the record, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight we have property owner Linda and Philip Tidd, authorized agent Kevin McCormick, parcel number 77060515, and this is in Mission Township. The request tonight is a preliminary plat, Oak Ridge Terrace, with 5 total lots. On page 271 of your packet is the locator map, and this is located on the south side of Fawn Lake Road, which is just off of County Road 3, and the north side of Fawn Lake Road, and it is the city of Cross Lake up here. On page 273 is the preliminary plat. Over here. Now, Lot 1 will have access off of Fawn Lake Road. Lot 2 through 5 will have access off of the proposed Oak Terrace Way, which will be dedicated to the public. The proposed access into lots 2 through 5 is 66 feet wide and does continue down the south end of proposed lot 5. Part of the preliminary plat process is to obtain a resolution of approval from Mission Township. The applicant received that approval from the township on April 13th, and that resolution is in your packet on page 274. No other comments have been received. If the board does approve this application, staff are recommending the 7 following conditions. Final plat must be submitted within 12 months of preliminary plat approval. 2, all applicable required improvements shall be effectively implemented. 3, if the plat proposes to disturb 1 acre more of soil, a stormwater pollution prevention plan must be approved by the MPCA. 4, documentation of the plat monuments completed. 5, title commitment. 6, site suitabilities must be submitted before final plat, and that is because the applicant submitted a winter window. Number 7, prior to final plat, it is required to amend the existing 66-foot easement across PID 77060533 to grant legal ingress egress use for TIDs. I can answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions? Is there anything that you'd like to add?
Just a couple things. The applicants have engaged Severson and Porter on the declaration of easement. The easement exists. They're going to augment that so that it's clear who gets to use that easement. And that'll be part of it. And that will be done and recorded prior to the final plat, so it can be shown on the final plat. The 66-foot easement going to the south was a recommendation by the county surveyor because at some point may have more than 2 people addressing it. That also will be done and recorded so the document number can actually be shown on the final plat. Other than that, unless there's any other questions, this is, we're pretty good with all the conditions, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant from the board? Okay.
I guess
Go ahead.
I'm trying to find the 5 lots. I count 6 here and then one.
Lot 5.
Okay.
So,
But this is 6 lots, isn't it?
yep. These were approved. These were approved with an administrative subdivision. So once they went, so it's
Oh,
1,
gotcha.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. Somebody.
Clear it up? Anything else?
Doesn't know how to count.
We had to count twice too. We did we had to do that.
The drawings do get busy.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, we will open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone in the courtroom who would like to address this application? Anyone? Seeing no one, we'll go to check online. Is there anyone online? And I don't believe there is. So we'll bring it back to the board for any further discussion and action on this request for preliminary plat.
Madam Chair, findings of fact are on page 289 of your packet.
Madam Chair, if there is no discussion, I would offer a motion.
Go ahead, please.
So I would move a recommendation to the County Board of approval of the preliminary plat of Oak Ridge Terrace with 5 lots, based on the findings of fact that were in the staff report that have just been reviewed, and subject to the 7 conditions that have been reviewed and are in the staff report and the survey that's been submitted.
There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Is there a second by Rock? Any further discussion?
Why would they, or, as far as a process, why wouldn't they just do the 7 lots rather than do administrative subdivision on 2? And is there?
There was. At the time this started, we were looking at doing some lots to get some capital going to get this. The township allowed 2 by administrative subdivision. So those 2 were done first.
Oh, okay.
Which now moves us into the formal 505 plan.
Correct, so Mission has some additional lot split requirements, and so that's what we're working on that. So we work real close with Mission Township.
Oh, okay. 'Cause I'm like, why wouldn't it just?
Any further discussion? Before we take final action on the preliminary plat, I need to verify 2 items with you. You understand tonight that we're making a recommendation to the county board for approval of your preliminary plat request.
Yes, we do.
And the county board does have final approval over that request. And do you understand that the required conditions that were discussed, placed on the preliminary plat, must be completed before applying for the final plat request?
Yes, we do.
Okay, we then will proceed with the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a great holiday.
Do we say June 9th for the county board?
June 9th.
Yes.
June 9th.
9 o'clock, yeah. Okay,
Thank you again very much.
thank you. Our next request would be Scott and Diane Moore for a variance. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Go ahead and state your names and addresses for the record, please.
This is Scott Moore, 18459 Gladstone Boulevard in Maple Grove.
Diane Moore, 18459 Gladstone Boulevard, Maple Grove.
Thank you. And Nicolette, will you read the request into the record, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight we have property owner and applicants Scott and Diane Moore, parcel number 50110812. Physical address of the property is 16365 Brighton Point Road in Deerwood. This is in Bay Lake Township. The request tonight is a variance for a lake setback of 45 feet where 100 feet is required to a new dwelling with an attached garage, and a lake setback of 43 feet where 100 feet is required to a proposed deck. And this is to construct a 1,077 square foot dwelling with a 629 square foot attached garage and a 224 square foot deck. On page 295 of your packet, this property is located on Bay Lake, a recreational development lake with a 100-foot setback. On the north side of Brighton Point Road is just west of County Road 10, over here, and the property is within the Shoreland District and is surrounded by shoreland and residential uses. On page 298 is the survey. I'm going to scroll down here. There was an updated survey that was received showing the deck, and I will show that here in just a minute on the projection screen. The existing house is 45 feet from OHW, and the existing deck is 35 feet from OHW. We'll switch over to that screen so you can see what I'm looking at. Chris has got the focus. All right, so existing house is 45 feet from OHW and the existing deck is 35 feet from OHW. How do you use this thing? There you go. So on the original survey, this deck was not included, which is actually closer to the lake. This deck is a open deck, and we determined that on the on-site. So it's not a covered deck, it will be open, and then this is where the new house will be. The existing impervious is at 20%, 20.7, and the proposed impervious is 21.2. To highlight a few on-site comments from the May 7th PCBOA on-site meeting, it was noted that it was determined the proposed deck is not covered. A vegetation buffer is needed to improve the shoreline protection. Similar structures exist on nearby parcels, and the parcel is only 50 feet wide, leaving limited space for development. A comment was received from the township recommending approval of the request, and no comments were received from the public. If the board does approve the application tonight, staff would like to recommend the 4 following conditions. A land use permit shall be approved by Land Services prior to construction. Implementation of an erosion and sediment control plan utilizing best management practices. 3, a stormwater management plan according to Article 41 of the Land Use Ordinance be implemented at the time, be approved by county staff at the time of land use permits and must be implemented by the time of permit expiration or upon substantial completion of the project, whichever is sooner. And number 4, an as-built certificate of survey showing all variance requirements include elevations must be met and submitted to the county once construction is complete. I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the applicant to see, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, nothing.
Okay, then we will open this up for public testimony. Is there anyone in the courtroom who'd like to address this application? Anyone? Seeing no one, we'll check online, and I don't believe there's anyone there either, so we'll bring it back to the board for further discussion and action. Any further discussion?
No, Madam Chair, we could put the findings up, please.
Yep. Madam Chair, findings of fact are on page 315 of your packet.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I only have one correction on the findings, and that would be that I like in the findings says township recommendation, there was none. I would like that changed to approval on 5/12/2026.
Thank you, good catch. Any further discussion?
I guess I have one question.
Sure.
I'm assuming that this garage is being removed in this shed to make room for the grain field?
You're referring to the existing garage that's there? Yeah, that's going in that shed that sits next to it as well. They're going to be removed.
Okay. Perfect.
Any other?
Is this a pervious asphalt driveway, or is it a paver driveway, or?
I thought it was the impervious asphalt is what Paul talked to us about, yeah.
Yep, they're under impervious.
It says pervious driveway. Right there.
Okay.
Previous driveway?
Pervious blacktop. So the blacktop that you're redoing and that you're entering, or that you're, the green pervious, the green blacktop. Are you planning on having this be pervious blacktop?
We would prefer that, yes.
Wonderful. To
I
clarify?
think that's what we needed to keep the pervious down, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked is, you got pavers and then you got, it just says pervious driveway. So you got pervious asphalt or you got pervious pavers and.
And we would doubt at the engineer no matter what, whatever mode they use.
Okay,
So,
and those require maintenance, don't they? They do.
Mm-hmm.
And do we have any conditions where records are sent in annually that it was vacuumed or it was maintained?
We do in Article 41, we could put a condition on that requires there to be annual maintenance records submitted for this.
Yeah, I believe if it's over 400 square feet, then it should have a maintenance plan.
Yep. Yeah, I think you can put I think we should put a condition on that requires there to be annual maintenance and submitted to the county for verification, so.
Okay, because it's 900 square foot.
Yep.
Did everyone hear that?
No.
No.
Can you repeat that, Chris?
I can. So based on the fact that they're going to be using that pervious driveway, we need to make sure that's being maintained properly. And so the past practice has been that typically if it's blacktop, it's going to, or like a cement, it just gets vacuumed. Anderson Brothers or other companies have big vacuums that just come and remove all the, if you get too much sand or silt or leaves on it, it'll just fill the holes in, and then the water will just run off it, and it's not pervious. So it does require it to be maintained. It's got to be vacuumed typically once a year to get the silt and sand off the driveway so it stays porous.
Is that something that has to be professionally done, I guess? Okay.
It does. They have a big truck that has the capability of having enough suction to be able to remove the particles from that, so.
Gotcha, and then how is that submitted?
Typically,
Email,
it's an
just a
invoice.
receipt
Typically,
or
we just see an invoice from Anderson or whoever. Typically, we see it from Anderson Brothers, but it can be anybody who has that, an invoice that shows they're just pervious maintenance, so, yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Can I ask a question? So I didn't quite hear all of that conversation. So I heard the applicant say they prefer pervious, but we're saying that the survey that we have in front of us prevails, right? And that's the requirement because that goes into the calculations. So if for some reason it becomes not pervious, what happens?
Then it's a violation of the ordinance is what it ends up being. If the pervious is over 25%, then it's a violation of the ordinance. And so we have other similar properties, a few. There's not a lot in the county that actually use pervious to maintain their number. And so we just require that they would send us that information, just an invoice that shows that the work was completed to make sure that was done. So we can put a condition in here into the conditions that would state that.
And that would be condition 5 that would say that?
That would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
And if we would elect to, sorry, can I ask questions during that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and if we would elect to go impervious on that, we would have to amend the site map for the
correct
percentage.
The house down to this big.
Yeah, and that's, that's not going to happen.
So pervious it is.
Right. So, yes.
So, Madam Chair and Board, I think what I'll put on is the conditional state that the lot cannot exceed 25% impervious, regardless. And then the use of pervious materials is allowed, provided that evidence of maintenance is submitted to the Land Search Department on a yearly basis.
Because you could go asphalt, or you could go, there's different pervious driveways.
Different
is what I was
materials,
asking, and they get treated differently.
We found the ones that are most problematic are the ones where people use the pavers, because the pavers aren't, it's the crack between, it's the gap between, and then about every 5 years you have to pull all that rock out in between, and because that's what fills up with the sand and the silt, the pavers themselves aren't. So the ones that have had the most success have used either like a pervious blacktop or a pervious cement for that driveway.
Gotcha.
Any further discussion or questions?
If not, Madam Chair, I'd be prepared to offer a motion.
Please do.
So I would move approval of the variance request for a lake setback of 45 feet where 100 feet is required to a new dwelling with attached garage, and a lake setback of 43 feet where 100 feet is required to proposed deck, to construct a 1,077 square foot dwelling with 629 square foot attached garage and 224 square foot deck, based on the findings of fact that have been submitted in the staff report, the survey that has been presented, and the now 5 conditions attached, 4 in the staff report, and the addition of condition 5 with the language addressing the pervious requirement.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Andy. Further discussion? Hearing none, before the board takes final action, I need to verify 4 items with you. You understand what is being approved tonight?
Yes.
You understand the conditions that are required as part of this approval?
Yes.
You understand that you must obtain permits now from the Land Services Department before construction begins?
Yes.
And you understand that what is being approved tonight is final. Any future changes to what's being approved tonight, such as structure size, height, or location, must be approved by this board. This means that you'd be required to submit a new application, pay the appropriate fees, and provide an updated survey and any other required information with your new request. And staff cannot modify or change what's been approved by this board. Is that understood?
Yes.
Okay, with that being
Madam
said,
Chair, one point, I guess. A little concerned with the square footage on the dwelling. Wouldn't it be double that because it's an upper and lower?
We only count footprint.
Only count footprint. Okay. All right. Good enough.
okay.
I didn't want to limit them to 1,000 square foot and then not be able to do the.
The second floor.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we're at the, we'll proceed with the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Your variance is approved. Thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda would be Charles and Carol Brown for a variance. Charles and Carol Brown. Good afternoon. Welcome, and if you please state your name and address for the record, please.
Charles Brown, 23761 North Platte Lake Road, Hillman, Minnesota.
Thank you.
Did you want our home address or the lake address?
Doesn't-
Oh, okay. 23761 North Platte Lake Road, Hillman.
Thank you. And Nicolette, can you read the request into the record, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, applicant and property owner is Charles and Carol Brown, parcel number 88320699. Address is 23761 North Platte Lake Road in Hillman, Minnesota, and this is in Roosevelt Township. The request tonight is a lake setback of 54 feet, where 75 feet is required to a proposed addition to the dwelling. And the second request is a dwelling addition placed within a bluff where structures must meet a 30-foot bluff setback from the top or the toe, to construct a 900 square foot addition to the dwelling with a 448 square foot attached garage. On page 322 of your packet, it'll show you that this property is located on Platte Lake, which is a general development lake with a 75-foot setback on the west side of, and it's located on the west side of County Road 8, just south of Pine Center. This property is within the Shoreland District and is surrounded by shoreland and residential uses. On page 325 of your packet is a certificate of survey. Let's go here. The existing structure is an existing non-conforming structure that was with a 55-foot setback from the OHW. Bluff standards did not come into effect until 1989, and our earliest permit history on file indicates this home was built before those standards were in place. To consider a hill a bluff by ordinance, it needs to be at least 25 feet high with a slope of 30% or greater. If we look here on the survey, there is, let me get this out just a bit. So it's kind of hard to see, but if you can see this line and follow with my cursor, this is the line where the 30% slope starts if you go over here to the right. If you go to the left of this 30% line, it is steep slope. So steep slope on this side, and you have bluff standards meeting the ordinance standards of the bluff with 30% more or greater and 25 feet high or greater than that. So this section right here of the house or the proposed addition will be within the bluff, and the remaining section will be within that steep slope. The existing driveway is proposed to be redone and turned into a pervious material, and I do believe like a pervious blacktop. is what we had spoke of last. Noting some on-site comments from the board, the several neighboring properties have similar structures. The project would involve significant earth moving, and a pervious driveway would represent a substantial improvement over existing conditions. No comments were received from the township, and no comments were received from the public. Total impervious right now on this property is 31.9%. And with this proposal, and the driveway, it does drop the impervious down to 24.1% on the property.
So it's under the max.
Under the max.
Substantial improvement, though.
Yes.
If the board does approve this application tonight, staff would like to recommend the 7 following conditions. 1, a land use permit shall be approved by Land Services prior to construction. 2, implementation of an erosion and settlement control plan. 3, stormwater management plan approved by staff at the time of the land use permit and implemented by the time of permit expiration or upon substantial completion of the project. 4, an engineered plan showing grading, cut, fill information shall be required for where the structures and driveway will be located. 5, applicants must reduce the impervious coverage on the lot to 25% by January 1st of 2027. 6, applicants must submit an engineered plan for the use of pervious material on the driveway. The plan must include construction specifications, stormwater storage capacity, and a long-term maintenance plan. And then 7, an as-built certificate of survey showing all variance requirements, including elevations, submitted to the county once construction is complete. I can answer any other questions you may have.
Any questions for staff? Lincoln? Hearing none, is there anything you'd like to add?
Did you say that it was impervious blacktop for the driveway?
No, she said pervious.
Pervious.
Okay.
You plan on putting pervious blacktop down? Was that your plan?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, any questions before we go to public testimony? Open it up. Is there anyone in the courtroom who would like to testify to this application? Seeing no one, we will double check online. Is there anyone online? I don't believe so. So we will come back to the board for further discussion and action on this application for a variance.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
as we discussed, on the on-site, I mean, we're looking at substantial dirt moving in a steep slope and part of it in a bluff. I mean, I know we have a condition of an engineered plan. Personally, I would like to see the plan and how that's what that's gonna entail to make sure that everything is being addressed that needs to be addressed. I mean, because we're talking, this is a steep slope and it goes right to the neighbor's property as we noted. I don't know, that's just my opinion. I'd like to see how they're gonna, what the plan entails.
I'm not an engineer, so I can read plans. But I'm not an engineer.
I'm not an engineer.
I know, but that's kind of, it's an engineered plan, and I'm not qualified to make comments on an engineered plan.
Evaluate it.
Correct. I can read it, and I know what it's all about because I've dealt with blueprints my whole life. But I'm not an engineer, so I don't see how tabling this to see the engineered plan is going to be of benefit to this board. That's what I'm looking at.
I would say if it's going to be a condition that plan is engineered, that we know that the experts are the ones who are designing it, and to trust their professional expertise.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not an engineer either. But I think Sue's request is, so we require an engineered plan. We don't know what the engineer is going to say, right? In terms of this parcel and what's proposed, et cetera. So let's say we have that condition and the engineer says, you got to change this, right? Because we don't have the plan. Does that come back to us?
Mm-hmm. What we approve is this, and any changes has to come back here.
What I want to have more comfort on, and I wasn't on the site review, but what I'm hearing is, I don't want to end up with this impacting the neighbor and them coming back and saying, what did you do? So, I mean, I'm normally adverse to bluff stuff anyhow, but I just like some more assurance.
Is it possible through the conditions to get more assurance? Or what are you suggesting that you would want to see a plan first as well?
Well, Madam Chair, we don't have to read the plan, right? We're not asked to read the plan, but when we have the plan and the engineer says this is doable and it won't have any impacts that are negative, then that is an assurance to this board that what we're approving is something we are comfortable approving. So I don't think it's a requirement to read the engineered plan. I just think the idea that the engineer says this is doable and it won't have any negative impacts is the assurance I'm looking for before I'm willing to approve it. Does that make sense to anybody?
I think that can be handled on a staff level rather than on a board level. Or what we need to do when it's going to be an engineered plan, we have to have the applicant provide those plans ahead of time so we can see them if that's what you want to do. But if it's not part of the application, because the trust is in the engineer, and I don't think it's fair to hold up that it's not going to impact the neighbor or the lake, or they do the SWIP and the stormwater prevention and all that's all engineered. It's installed by the excavator or whoever, but I don't think it's fair to hold up the applicant for a document that we really can't read because we're not qualified as engineers. And secondly, he already has to make sure it doesn't impact the neighbor as an engineer, or he's the one on the hook with his design.
Madam Chair, can I just respond? I hear your points, and all I'm saying is we have an applicant that has a survey proposal in front of us that wants us to do something, and we have conditions, and we're saying no engineer has looked at this yet. That's just a plan, and I'm saying that given that it has potential impacts, I don't think it's unreasonable to say to the applicant, we'd like to have that engineered plan done so that we have comfort that this proposal isn't going to be a problem. That's all I want. And I don't think that requires us to be experts at engineering to get that. We're getting that assurance, just as when we look at surveys, I'm not an expert on surveys either, but we get information to guide us. So that's just my pitch. But if the majority of the board thinks not, I'm going to vote no, because I think that I won't be comfortable without that.
I guess, Madam Chair, my question is, if there's a condition of this plan that a smart person prepares, do we have to get into a lot of detail of what that plan is going to prevent? How broad can that be? Because to me, if it says plan must be submitted by a engineer that precludes negative impact on the neighbor's property, I guess I'm okay with that, the engineer's putting their license on it. But the question I have is negative impact. How broad is that? What does negative impact mean?
Construction, the noise, that's an impact. I mean, you gotta be careful with that.
Right.
You know, it doesn't suddenly spill water onto the adjacent property or, you know, call out an impact that would affect their foundation. But an impact would be the nail gun putting the shingles on the roof all summer long.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Madam Chair, okay. I hear that. I'm talking about, we are cutting into a bluff. I'm talking about that impact.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about a nail gun on a roof. I'm talking about, we're having, cutting into a bluff attached to a steep slope. That's a pretty unique terrain that we're being asked to address. That's why we have the bluff ordinance. So that's what I'm addressing when I say the negative impact of bluff and steep slope, not the other things, just for clarification.
And Madam Chair, and that's my concern, is what impact with all this dirt moving in a steep slope, part of it in a bluff, was, you know, I'd like the prevention of it impacting the neighbor's property with a heavy rain, that's my biggest concern. Being on that onsite, and you were out there too, Becky, it does. It slopes right down to the neighbor's property.
Well, there's an impact now.
There's an impact now,
But if you have an engineered plan, and maybe it's such a thing that we say that the engineer plan has to address this, that it is feasible to not have a negative impact. And if it's not, then it's back to the drawing board. I don't know how you word that. I don't know how you do that without tabling it and having it come back. Can we do that in the conditions? That's my question. Can we condition it that this plan is in place before anything is moved by a licensed engineer that says, yes, this is a feasible plan that will not adversely impact the neighboring property? Can we do that?
Madam Chair, you guys can do whatever you like. That's the fun part about this job.
Yep.
I think.
I'm not just sure how to.
So if you look at condition number 4, if you bring up the conditions.
Yes.
So we look at condition number 4, we put in a requirement that says an engineered plan showing grading and cut and fill information shall be required for where the structures and driveway will be located. If we'd like to add verbiage to that to say, feasibility.
That comes first. I think it's kind of like a sequential thing, or that needs to be satisfied first before proceeding with anything, is what I am hearing from the other board members. That everything's kind of contingent. That's step one. Everything else is kind of contingent on that stamp of approval that, yes, this is okay.
Madam Chair, so are you suggesting that would be turned in and approved before the land use permit would be approved?
That's just, I think that's assumed in the condition that we have now.
I believe so.
But do you need added verbiage to say something about feasibility or, frankly, I've never.
Madam Chair, to address, John's comment is a good one, and he clarified it for me. We're digging into a bluff. That's significant. So, to me, I would want to see that condition, among other things, refer to a plan where there's assurance of the stability of the bluff, which I think then addresses your concern. And then secondarily, and so you mentioned this addresses the impact to the neighbors and assurance that it won't have a negative impact on the neighbors and the stability of the bluff. To me, if those two things are conditional before we move, I'm okay with that.
And if we state it as such, that within the conditions, I would see that that would go to the staff then, not come back here. Am I missing something?
Correct. I would be okay with that if somehow we can have wording in there or condition in there that, okay, the engineer plan, like number 4 says, has to be submitted and reviewed by staff
I think that's a,
prior to any building permits being issued, and show that, and it also needs to show that it, or a statement from the engineer, whatever, that the plan that's being submitted is feasible and will not have a negative impact on the neighboring properties.
like the engineer certifies that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an engineer plan, and you're right, Rock, we're not engineers, we don't know how to read it. And staff's not engineers, but I think a statement from whoever does this plan saying the submitted plan will not have a negative impact on the neighboring property or the lake. I think that needs, that statement in there, I mean, I think I'd like to see it in there.
Madam Chair, I think,
Yes.
I think where I'm separating from you guys, and that's okay, is I think number 4 already says that. We got to have an engineered plan. I think it says that already. And the difference where I sit is because of the significance of this in the bluff, et cetera, I'm saying I'd like that person to have looked at this and already done it before I'm willing to approve it, in case they would come back with other things, right? I don't presume to know what the engineer is going to say, and I'm not trying to be an engineer. I just think because of the significance of what you described at the site, I'd like that in place, and then I might consider that in my approval. I don't like approving things that might have to come back. I just, as a practice, right? I don't generally like that. So that's just my separation, but if everyone else is okay, that's fine too. But I don't know that language changes that. I think number 4 says that. We need an engineered plan. Presumption is going to create a plan that works.
So proposed language could be, so if we start with number 4, an engineered plan showing grading, cut fill information shall be required for where the structures in the drive will be located. The engineered plan must be submitted to staff and reviewed prior to issuing the permit. The engineer must certify that the project will not negatively impact the bluff, lake, or adjacent property. Oh, that's steep slope.
I know what we're asking for.
I think that adds the specificity that has been discussed, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and it does address I think it addresses my concerns with that. That's all that dirt moving in that steep slope and bluff. We gotta, protect that, protect those neighbors and the lake.
So are we at the point where we can entertain a motion?
The findings are
The
on,
findings,
Findings of fact are on page 339 of your packet.
339. Any discussion or additions to the findings?
I'd make a motion to approve the lake setback of 54 feet where 75 feet is required to the proposed addition to the dwelling. A dwelling placed in a bluff and where structures must meet 30-foot setback from the top or toe of bluff to construct a 900 square foot addition to the dwelling with a 448 square foot garage with the conditions as discussed and the finding of facts.
Number 4 amended as we discussed.
Yep, number 4 amended.
Sounds good.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
The second. Any further discussion? Not. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Do we have to ask the applicant, Madam Chair? Do we have to ask the applicant?
Oh, sorry about that. My mind's still in the discussion. Do you understand what is being approved tonight?
You want it engineered?
Yes.
Correct. So you'll tell us what needs to be engineered?
We will help connect you with an engineer for you to contact, and then they will help you design the engineered plan that would be needed for the house.
Okay.
We'll help you figure that out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And do you understand the conditions that are required as part of this approval, the conditions that we've had the discussion on?
Correct.
Okay. Do you understand that you must obtain permits from land services before construction begins, and that the first step is going to be the plan?
Yes.
Engineered plan. Do you understand what's being approved tonight is final? Any future changes to what is being approved tonight, such as structure size, height, or location, must be approved by this board. This means that you would be required to submit a new application, pay the appropriate fees, and provide an updated survey and any other required information with the new request. Staff cannot modify or change what has been approved by this board.
Yes.
Okay. With that being said, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
The motion carries by 4-1.
We can have a conversation tomorrow.
We'll talk tomorrow. We'll talk.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Staff will help guide you.
Yes. Okay.
Thanks for your time and your patience.
I'm sorry.
And your patience for waiting.
Yes, thank you. No problem. Thanks.
Where are we?
Evening.
Madam Chair, we do have Justin Hortzman online, who is the authorized agent of the Gregert preliminary plat, the
Oh,
one we
good.
skipped.
For the variance and preliminary plat?
Correct.
Okay, that sounds great. Justin, can you please state your name and address for the record, please? I think you're muted.
Oh, shoot. What did I just do?
You have to unmute your microphone.
Are you there?
There you go. If you'd state your name and
Sorry.
address for the record, please. That's okay. Thanks for your patience.
Yep. My name is Justin Robert Forstman. I live at 46445 250th Street, Gaylord, Minnesota, 55334.
And Nicolette, can you read the application into the record, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight we have property owner Sean Gregert, authorized agent Justin Hortzman, parcel number 600-60516. Physical address is 38509 Pickerel Trail in Cross Lake. This is in Fairfield Township, and the current land use is Shoreland District. There are 2 requests tonight, Madam Chair. I would suggest running the public hearing for both items together, making motions separately. The first request is a variance for a road access width of 33 feet where 66 feet is required. And the second request is a preliminary plat of Hooker Landing with 2 lots. On page 212 of your packet, it'll show you that the parcel here is located on Pickerel Lake, and that is a natural environment lake with a setback of 150 feet. New parcels on natural environment lakes must have a minimum lot size of 80,000 square feet, a minimum buildable area of 40,000 square feet, and a minimum lot width of 200 feet. On page 214 of your packet is the certificate of survey or the preliminary plat. Zoom out here quick. Pickerel Trail is a private road with a 33-foot wide access, and starts out at Bonnie Lakes Road and comes all the way up north, ending at this parcel. As the private road extends to each new property, the owner is proposing a 66-foot wide access. So from down here is the existing 33 feet. As soon as it comes to the property, it's going to be a 66-foot wide access. access into Lot 1 and Lot 2. The proposed parcels are almost double the minimum lot size, minimum buildable area, and lot width that is required by ordinance for preliminary plats on natural environment lakes. Proposed Lot 1 does have a dwelling with a compliant septic, and Lot 2 is currently a vacant lot. The proposed preliminary plat meets all of the requirements of the land use ordinance. No comments were received from the township, and two comments were received from the public in opposition of the request. If the board does approve the application tonight, staff are recommending no conditions for the variance and the 6 following conditions for the preliminary plat. One being a final plat must be submitted within 12 months of the preliminary plat approval. 2, all applicable required improvements per Article 9.8 shall be effectively implemented. 3, if the plat proposes to disturb 1 acre more of soil, a stormwater pollution prevention plan must be approved by the MPCA. 4, documentation of the plat monuments completed. 5 is title commitment, and 6, site suitabilities must be submitted before final plat because a winter window was submitted with the application. I can answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you, Nicolette.
Going over the pictures that were submitted.
Oh, yes. So there were photos that were submitted to, and they each have copies of these.
If you guys have these, I think, get the photos.
We had one comment come in, just.
A couple comments come in, right? We had 2
Yeah, we did. We had 2 comments that came in just kind of at the end of the day here, and there were some photos that were provided by one of them, and they just wanted to go over some of the road issues that they have seen in the past with drainage. There seems to be some speeding, safety issues around some of the corners, some blind spots as it seems, and they just wanted the board to be aware of those potential issues on Pickerel Trail.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Is there anything that you'd like to add as the
From me?
applicant? Yes.
Yes, I would like to add that my neighbor that had complaints about, basically people speeding up this road or whatnot, he basically told me the other day that what he's worried about is the accidents that are gonna happen or whatnot, and there's gonna be too many people on this road. I did tell him that I own heavy equipment, I do construction, I do all that stuff. I said, well, if that's the case, why don't we all get together and widen the road and make it safer? And let's do something like that and get ahead of the game. He came back to me and said he wants to keep it 20 feet wide. And I said, well, I don't see how your concern is really helping this if there ain't a resolution to keep everybody happy here. For me, anything that I've offered has came back at me, and I don't know how to move forward with this. For every solution, I'm getting nothing back from his side. He just wants it to be the same trail that it's always been, but without any type of change to it. It's still going to be an unsafe road, whether I'm in it or he's in it. And that's the part where I'm just not understanding him completely as I read through his all his articles that he sent to you guys. And like I said, I do construction, I do all that stuff, excavating, everything that you can think of. I am a licensed builder in Minnesota. I just, like I said, I want things to be as safe as he wants them to be. I'm on the fire department. I do pretty much anything I possibly can to avoid any type of problems down the road. And for me, I don't want no beefs with no neighbors or nothing like that. I've tried to be very polite. I've tried to help any one of them out. But at the end of the day, it takes agreeance from everybody, being that there's so many people on that road.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone in the courtroom who wishes to speak to this application? Please come up to the microphone at the podium there, sir. Right there, standing up right there. Yes, that's correct.
think this is supposed to represent danger for our dangerous road, our safety? Our road's not that safe. It's a dangerous road. So I brought this as my prop. I didn't bring it for this or get my.
Okay.
But anyway, our road is the first 4 block. It used to be a mile-long private road. I did all the plat work back 40, 50 years ago for my siblings when my dad died. Anyway, it used to be private, and then we went through Potlatch and another private, and then all of a sudden the county came in about 1,200 acres, and now all of a sudden our easement, which the only Potlatch only allowed 5 people on there, became public, and the DNR opened it up, took all our signs down and caution signs. The first 4 blocks of this mile-long road, and like I say, the last 8 blocks is private, very, very dangerous. What I did when I got that, we went ahead and I told them we'd go on the existing logging road that Potlatch had. We'd use that, and that road is anywhere from 10 feet to possibly 18 feet wide. It's got 3 very dangerous curves. You'll see one picture where that was an accident, and this guy hit me, and I'm just gonna call him this identity person. And then he had, 3 years ago, bragged about his fastest speed around that second dangerous curve is 56 miles an hour. He put his ATV right in a big pine tree and flew right through the window. And I helped him drag that back to his place. There's been problems with numerous near misses of hits. Nobody has walked our road for 9 years. Our road, the last 8 blocks is probably, the width varies from, I'm saying maybe 12, 13, well, back towards the end, only about 10, 11 feet up to maybe 20, 22 feet. But that road gets very narrow in the wintertime. When plowing, we don't have the right stuff and the snow builds up on the sides, can't go over. And we get in the wintertime where cars can't pass and we have to back up to find a spot wide enough to pass. Also in the springtime, we get the spring thawing for 4 or 5 weeks. There's up to 12-inch muddy ruts. And down to single lane traffic to get through, and you need all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive. I talked to the chief of police. He was going to get me a letter how dangerous that road is, and it should be improved. Adding more traffic and more people is not going to help them get through the current thing. I think Justin would be a great neighbor, but it is setting the precedence for not only his 5 acres, but more. We have 5 cabins on that lake now. It could add up as many as 12 more. So I think we got about 20 people with 5 cabins now. That could probably go up to 50, 60, or 68 people using that road. We maintain it ourselves. That's tough because most people don't want to chip in, so I pretty much do most of the work, and another owner does too. And another chips in a little bit. But my biggest concern is, I told Justin, you have all this big equipment and you're willing to do this and widen out road. On our 8 blocks, we got a 32-foot easement. And it's, like I say, it's only maybe 16 feet wide at the widest. You can't just go in and go on all the neighbors and cut down their trees and make that 32 feet wide. Neighbors ain't gonna do that. I had the attorney write it up back then, pretty vague. It says over, across, and along. It doesn't say you can put blacktop or not or gravel. It doesn't say anything. So my attorney was telling me that he can't just come in there and think that he's going to go ahead and widen that out to 32 feet. As he said, at one time he just widened out to 32 feet. Can't do that. So we might be stuck. And one neighbor said absolutely not, no widening out any of my road. So that's one problem. The next problem was the state coming in the first 4 blocks. Is that a public road? What is that? I mean, right now, to add insult to injury, they opened that up 2 years ago. On the first 4 blocks, like I say, we only had 5 hunters come on that from Potlatch. Now the state owns it, and now we get all these hunters and walkers and bikers coming down this first block, parking their cars, walking and stuff, and that's only 10 to maybe 12 feet wide road. So, make a long story short, I told Justin that, or I'm thinking that if we could give one 5-acre lot, because he's a good guy, and put a moratorium somehow on any, and keep it at that one until there's more research done, and have him come in, and the other second thing, have him come in with his equipment, go on the first 4 blocks, and make that.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
point of order, we're at time.
Okay.
Take the 3 curves out and make the road wider, make it safer. And without
Thank you.
those things, it's not gonna work.
Okay, thank you for your time. Your time is up, but I appreciate your patience waiting to speak. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for, well, I was gonna thank you, everybody, too, before here, putting up with all this stuff.
Is there anyone else here in the courtroom that wishes to address this application? Anyone? And is there anyone online?
No.
Okay, then we will bring it back. I don't know, Justin, if you have anything that you would like to respond to the testimony?
All I'm trying to say, and I hope the board can see this as well as I do, is if you're complaining that the road is too narrow and I'm giving you a solution that I can widen the road, but he says he does not want it widened, I don't know how to greet that with what he's asking for. Obviously, I've told him I got equipment. I said, if all of us neighbors agree on a line here or there and we make the road wide and safe and this or that, that to me is making a solution. Do you not agree? I'm just basically, I'm trying to make a solution for where there's conflict. That's it.
Thank you.
Like I said,
Oh, thank you so much. Okay.
Yep.
We will bring it back then to the board for further discussion and action.
Okay.
If you want to.
Madam Chair, if I could just point out one thing.
Yes.
The minimum lot width for natural environment lakes is 200 feet, and proposed lot 1 is 356 feet wide. Proposed lot 2 is 350 feet wide. So they could not be split again. They already, they could not be split again.
Okay. The 2 lots are what the request is, and that's where it would be.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And just a point of clarification, this 33-foot ingress and ingress, egress easement is a public road.
Our surveyor, our county surveyor has confirmed that it is an ingress, egress all the way to Bonnie Lake Road.
I'm not saying I don't think it's a public road. There's everybody along that area has the ability to use that easement, so, yeah. When you get down to the public land on the south side, there's some different down there, but once you get, like you mentioned, the first 4 blocks, once you get up.
But it's a public road, privately maintained. Basically?
It's not really a public road, it's an easement. It's not a road that you and I get to use because we don't live out there, so we're not benefiting, we're not part of it. So there's an easement that gets access down to Bonnie Lakes Road. There's an easement that gets there, and that's how and it's a 33-foot wide easement, so that's why they need a variance, because they don't have a 66-foot wide easement to get access to the public road. So it is for, the easement is for the folks out in the area.
Okay, so this to public road is?
To the public.
To the public road.
This gets you to the public road,
Okay.
Correct.
Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I mean, I look at this application and I look at the one we had previous tonight, which was the same situation.
Same situation.
It's an existing 33-foot easement. And like staff said, these lots can't be subdivided. It's for two more lots.
It's actually one more lot.
One more lot,
One total,
correctly.
one.
It's actually for one more lot.
One more lot.
Yeah.
It's not 2 lots,
Yeah.
it's 1 lot.
So, I would hope that they could come to an agreement if on somehow of maybe making this road a little wider, a little safer. But it's existing. It's an easement to this property. I don't see how, I mean, I can't vote against this. So.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I can entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, findings of facts are on page 234 of your packet.
234 for the findings of fact, but
Let's look at the variance first.
Oh, variance 220.
Madam Chair,
yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the variance for road access width of 33 feet where 66 feet is required based on the findings of facts submitted in the staff report, the certificate of survey submitted in the staff report on the on-site conducted on 5/7/2026.
Thank you. There's a motion on the
Second.
floor, and there's a second. Any further discussion? Okay, before we vote on the variance, I need to go over and make sure that you understand what is being approved. Do you understand what's being approved tonight?
Yes,
You understand the conditions that are required as part of this approval?
yes,
You understand that you must obtain permits now from Land Services Department before construction begins?
yes,
You understand what is being approved tonight is final, and any future changes to what is being approved tonight, such as structure size, height, or location, must be approved by this board. This means that you would be required to submit a new application, pay the appropriate fees, and provide an updated survey and any other required information with the new request. Staff cannot modify or change what has been approved by this board.
yes,
Okay, then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we will go with the preliminary plat.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary plat of Hooker Landing consisting of 2 lots per findings of fact submitted in the staff report, the certificate of survey submitted in the staff report, and the on-site conducted on 5/7/2026 with the 6 conditions listed in the staff report.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? Okay, once again, before we take final action, I need to verify 2 items with you that you understand. You understand that we are making a recommendation to the county board to approve your preliminary plat request.
yes,
And the county board has final approval over this request, and the next meeting is June 9th at 9 o'clock in the courtroom here. Do you understand that the required conditions placed on the preliminary plat must be completed before applying for the final plat request?
yes,
Okay, great. We then will proceed with the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
thank you.
The last item on the agenda is land use ordinance update.
All right, well, thank you, Madam Chair. Last item on the agenda. Thanks, folks, for waiting as long as you have. You know, 5:30, it's not so bad, right? It could be worse. So at least we start at 3 and not 5, so. Yeah, no, that's intentional. No.
Take a little rest back there.
It's kind of like being at church, right? I don't want to be too comfy. So I just want to go over quick where we're at with the land use ordinance, and then we're going to zip down to where everything is, and we're going to kind of just go over a few things. So the first thing I want to go over first is just a timeline, just a reminder of where we're at. So we started this process back on March 17th for the county board. At the committee of the whole, they initiated a 30-day comment period. We received a comment during that period as part of the packet tonight. We went and had a discussion with the Planning Commission last month at a work session to give you an update on what was discussed. We are having the public hearing tonight. This will go back to the county board on June 16th at the committee of the whole to give them an update on the ordinance and the recommendation that you hopefully will make tonight, with a final decision coming on June 23rd. Just as a reminder, some of the things that we made some changes. We made quite a few changes. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. So there were just some housekeeping items which were in green that I'm not going to really get into too much detail with, but it's, as a reminder, we're deleting the sensitive shoreline district. That would have been a zoning classification that would have, if the county board would have assigned it, would have put a sensitive shoreline area on a, like say on a general development lake with natural environment standards for new development. It's never been used, and so the kind of the way it works in planning and zoning is if you don't use something for 16 years, it probably isn't something that you need to have in the ordinance, and so we're proposing to remove that. One of the things that we're adding is if we ever had a data center application, it would have to be an interim use permit in a commercial industrial district. We amended Article 10.3 to clarify the solar wind energy system designations, where things could be located and where they couldn't be. One thing we're changing that's significant is Article 11.5. We're deleting the shoreline rapid assessment model. So if you remember, at the ordinance change last month, in 2025, in December, we decided to have the 10-10-25 standard for buffers, 10 feet on GD lakes, 10 feet on RD lakes, and then 25 feet on natural environment lakes versus doing that model, which was subjective, and we had some folks that really didn't maybe always agree with how the assessment was done, so it's easier to do just a flat number, I think, is what we're proposing. And then, so that's really the significant change. And then, but the real reason why we did this was for Article 42 to add renewable energy systems to the ordinance. So prior to this, we had basically renewable energy related to wind and solar for more residential use, not for larger scale, commercial, industrial type uses. And so that really is what Article 42 is. We also added a bunch of definitions in Article 46, with 99.9% of those being related again to that renewable energy concept. We did receive some comments, and it's in your packet. One of the biggest, I think, it seemed like everybody was supportive of what's been requested, except for having regulations for what's called a battery energy storage system. And so that is basically when you're collecting energy through, say, solar, it stores the electricity in these batteries. And the question comes up is where should they be located, and how close should they be to, say, a city and residential uses in that. So I'm just going to kind of walk through. I think you guys can see up on my screen what I'm looking at. And so we modified Article 42.5 to clarify the setbacks for the components of a large solar energy system. The battery energy storage system, we modified that as well to increase clarity and eliminate possible contradictions. We modified the setback to a dwelling has been decreased from 1/4 mile to 500 feet. Because we felt, based on the comments that we received, that might have been a little bit too much. Dwelling owners can always waive that amount. The setback required of property lines has been reduced from that 1/4 mile down to 330 feet. And then 150 feet of the storage technology is not prone to fire, or if it's prone to fire. I think one of the issues that you can hear tonight brought up is the fact that the ordinance still maintains a setback around municipalities in the county of 2 miles for these battery energy storage systems. There's a couple reasons why we kept that proponent in there. One, I got my notes here. One is that under 462.357, there's official controls. 462 is the governing statute for cities. 394 is a governing statute for counties. That basically gives us the authority to do planning and zoning. And so a city has the ability to extend its zoning into an unincorporated township by 2 miles if it so chooses. And so that is one reason why we chose to honor that 2 mile setback, because the concern that we have with these battery energy storage systems is that if they start on fire, they can get pretty nasty, a lot of smoke, very, very hazardous. So it's the opinion of staff that we want to maintain that a setback to make sure we don't have any issues with cities. And I think we all learned how nasty it is when we have a big fire. Just with this last weekend up by Cross Lake, we had that big fire up there. And so what we wanted to avoid is just, is having a situation where we would have a fire, would cause some potential impacts to a population center. And that doesn't mean that's where it has to stay. I mean, if it turns out that down the road, maybe there's been some information that shows that it can be reduced, I think we could talk about that. But I think, when I was talking with the county board and having some conversations, I think they prefer to be more conservative on some of these setbacks, and because it's easier to reduce them than to increase them later down the road, right? And so that's one of the reasons that we have that. And when you have these fires, it seems like the process is to let them burn out. So it's not like you put out the fires. They're typically lithium ion. They typically burn out versus getting put out because of that. And so there could be a it could go on for some time, is a concern with that. And then another one too is just the idea of development. And when you know, by having these potential uses so close to a city, it could prohibit potential future development in that area where people might not want to have development around these battery energy storage systems and that. So that's another reason that we included that in there as well. And so there's another part in here that I want to bring up that's not related to the battery energy storage or to the solar component, but it's to the floodplain ordinance. So when we updated the floodplain ordinance about 1.5 years ago, we got a model ordinance from the DNR that we used as our template. Well, they gave us some information that we needed to update. And so we're including that tonight as well so that we can get that provision taken care of. Excuse me. So Article 21.2 needs to be revised to state each firm panel number. So for floodplain information, they call it a firm. It's basically the map that shows where the floodplain is located, and there's different firm maps. We referenced them. They want us to state the exact firm map numbers. So we have to amend the ordinance to include that panel number. And then we also have to include, so the floodway is the river itself, and then the flood fringe is that area where it overflows. And so they had given us the wrong information. Right now it says that the current ordinance would allow a 1.5-foot stage increase in the floodway for an activity, and the statute, the rule says it's got to be to 0. So we need to change that from 1.5 feet to 0 feet. We also need to update the start of construction definition. So those are the 3 things that we need to make changes for in the floodplain ordinance. So I would be happy to answer any questions. I know there's some folks in the audience who would love to come up and address some of the issues that maybe we're talking about tonight. And so I think at this point, we welcome the public hearing and we can take some comments from the public.
Sounds great. If anyone would like to come forward and speak to these ordinance changes, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners. Reed TC, I live at 10307 South Oaks Road in Brainerd, transitioning to 12155 Oak Ridge Road in Brainerd.
Gary TC, I'm at 12437 Oak Ridge Road, Brainerd.
I just would like to first thank the Commission, the County Board, and the Land Services staff for considering this ordinance adjustment or ordinance amendment. Certainly Chris brought up a number of points about the previous ordinance being mainly for residential solar. When we look at commercial solar as landowners near a substation, we've had, I can't probably count on 2 sets of hands here how many letters I get in the mail for potential solar solutions, but through the collaboration and teamwork with Brainerd Public Utilities and Eden Energy, who's in the room here today, we think we are looking at a project that could be something in the future here for us. And so just here tonight to just express our support for the Land Services staff that have worked so hard to model the ordinance around a number of other existing ordinances through other counties and really try to put in good protections for landowners and the county in general. And certainly you have to start somewhere. When you create an ordinance or you're adopting new portions like this, you have to start somewhere and then you have to build upon what works for each county, because certainly what works for Crow Wing County is not going to be applicable for Murray County. I know, Chris, that was one that we were talking about in some of our conversations. So certainly we have to modify it and tweak those ordinances to do what works for us. And I think Chris and his staff have done a nice job on putting something together here that's very reasonable for people to work with. So happy to answer any questions we might have, but also let my dad make some comments as well.
Yes, I've been farming on that land now for over 50 years, and there comes a point when it's just not feasible anymore. And as to turn it into a development or something like that, I've always been a person to be productive. And so, as Reed said, we've been approached by numerous companies looking at solar, and I'm okay with that. It's pretty quiet. It's better than Bitcoin and some of these other facilities that are up. At this point, like I said, I want the land to stay in our family, and I want it to be productive. And so therefore, through our talking, we just decided at this point for my wife and I that we would take and entertain something like this. And I'm very happy to work with Eden. I feel that they're a very reputable company. And we're looking forward to going forward on this and with your approval. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you both. Anyone else who'd like to come forward?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commissions. My name is Bob Long. I'm a county resident. I live at 41066 Peninsula Road in the great city of 50 Lakes. And so I also, just full disclosure, I happen to be a consultant also to Eden. So I'm pretty familiar with the project that we're talking about with Brainerd Public Utility and the TC family. I'm here as a resident, though, speaking in favor of the ordinance. We think it's a good ordinance. I know staff's put a lot of work in. We really appreciate it. As a former League of Minnesota Cities president, I understand and get the issue about the zoning issue on the 2 miles. So that's something I didn't realize, Chris, but I think that makes some sense to, for now, leave that in, and with the county board ability to have some discretion if it on a case-by-case basis. I happen to live up in 50 Lakes, as I mentioned, and we've been working with a neighboring property owner, similar to the TC family, that wants to do something with Crowing Power on near a substation up at the Ox Lake substation on Meyer Road, the County Road 66, if you know that area, up there right by County Road 1 and County Road 66. So that's just an example where I think what we're going to see, not just in Crow Wing County, but throughout the state, is more interest in some of these smaller scale 5 and 10 megawatt size projects that, because I think the utilities generally want to have the local solar where they can, because it gives them frankly some predictability in their energy pricing and their ability to have some energy close to home and avoiding some of the power outages as they bring in power from North Dakota. It's nice to have local power locally, so some of us can at least get our lights on. No, I'm just kidding. But I think it's a very good ordinance. We appreciate all the good work, and certainly ask the Planning Commission to support it, and appreciate the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thank you all for sticking through to the end here, and pleased we can have an opportunity to discuss the solar law today. My name is Tom Cosby. I'm a resident in upstate New York, although previously from the UK, moved to the US in the last few years in pursuit of work. Firstly, thank you very much for taking the time, the staff, to draft, and the board here to review the solar law and the energy law that's being proposed. It's very favorable for the project we're working on at the moment. I think when we first came to Chris and the department proposing a utility-scale solar project, it was something that was new to the county, so we appreciate all the solar work that's been put in there, and also following our public comment, we really appreciate the revision of some of that battery energy storage language as well. A bit about what the project might bring here. There's a number of benefits that solar in local communities like this does bring, and I think one of the major ones that I think will resonate throughout the county is some of the solar production tax that we'll offer the county. It's a Minnesota statute, and the project will generate somewhere between $20,000 to $25,000 a year worth of tax revenue to county and townships. That's one of the key benefits that solar brings, as well as Bob mentioned, the kind of local control over power, and actually some pretty significant rate savings to the off-taker here, which we're looking to work with Brainerd Public Utilities. I think, as Chris mentioned, there's one provision, the 2 mile city setback, that we commented on, I think once or twice. We appreciate the explanation about municipalities having the right to expand their permitting control into that 2 mile radius. And we understand that. We'd love for that to be reconsidered, but at this stage, we're happy with the position that this battery energy storage law can proceed with the ability for the county board to have some discretion over that. And I will reiterate, our project here with the TC family, just outside of Brainerd, does not have any energy storage. But we think it's important when we're working with local communities that we voice our opinions on how best to form ordinances that will facilitate energy transition going forward. So whether that's our battery energy storage interests in the future or any other company that comes behind us or municipalities, we think it's important that we can voice our opinions on laws that work. But we appreciate your consideration here. Thank all the staff for your time, and thank you, commissioners and Madam Chair, for your time considering here. Happy to host any questions. I appreciate it's been a long old evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments.
Madam Chair, if I may, it's finally nice to put a face to we've been on the phone for, what, 6 months at least, talking, so it's nice to at least know what I kind of had a feeling after a while, I started like, I'm guessing who it is after a while, I kind of laid out, but I appreciate that. I think one thing that we could really think about is if we do look at this provision up here, it's under F where it says, a 2 mile from the city limits of any incorporated city within the county. We have it approved otherwise by the county board, but really the county board isn't going to be the decision maker for this. It's going to be you guys as the planning commission. So what we could do is we could remove the county board provision and put planning commission board of adjustment. And then if they want, that gives them at least the ability to come forward if they have a compelling reason why they think that 2 mile radius could be reduced. It would at least give you the opportunity, because they could always apply for variance. I mean, variances are always an opportunity to apply for. But I think this would at least give them the opportunity, if they had a compelling reason, they could submit as part of their application, say instead of a 2 mile, we think it should be a 1 mile or whatever number. It would at least give, in the ordinance, it would have a way for them to provide a reason to you why they think the 2 mile setback might not be appropriate for that situation. So I think if we were to make a change, I would change that to the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment, because you will be the final decision makers on if you approve the permits for a solar or a wind project.
Madam Chair, I like that change.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. I would like to see that change to Planning Commission Board of Adjustment.
I think we could do that. I think that would address the issue that you brought up. So that way at least gives you the opportunity to provide a reason as to why you think the setback should be reduced.
Brilliant. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
We can do that.
So would that end up being a variance then?
It wouldn't be. I don't think it would be. It would just be part of the interim use permit where that gives you guys the flexibility.
So it would be the interim use permit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It would be in the permit itself. Yeah, but it gives you the opportunity and the flexibility to say you think their reason is compelling enough to say, yeah, why you think a reduced setback would be appropriate. Yeah, I think that kind of gives us that middle ground of that, so.
Makes sense. Anything else on the ordinance changes?
No, Madam Chair, I would recommend we make that change. Recommend the layout as it's been provided to you tonight with that one small change on the setback to provide you the flexibility to decide if you want to give that. And that's a simple change from County Board to Planning Commission Board of Adjustment. Very simple change.
Sounds good. Okay, that takes us to matters not on the agenda.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, we do need a motion.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
To recommend approval of the ordinance with that change to the County Board.
Very good.
But Madam Chair, Chris, what is that change to? Which article?
It would be Article 42.12. And it would be
42.12, letter F.
Yep, it'd be C and then letter F for the 2 million, right, yep.
CF, okay.
42.12C?
F. C then F.
Big C, little F, yep.
Big C, little F.
Okay, Madam Chair. If there's no discussion, I'm ready.
I've got one more question.
Sure.
So is it addressed in the ordinances as far as, let's just say, technology changes drastically in 20 years and we're running off of water vapor to generate electricity rather than solar. And these facilities now are worth zero because the energy cost is so much less.
Yep.
And is it in the ordinance portion where removing this?
It is. That's a great question. Article 42.8 is abandonment and decommissioning. So if the renewable energy system shall be considered discontinued after 1 year without energy production, then it's got to be taken down and removed. And then the ordinance has requirements. They've got to put financial assurance in place for the county for if they don't decommission appropriate to the ordinance, then that gives the county the ability to go in and decommission on their behalf.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Madam
I'm
Chair.
ready.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to the county board to approve the ordinance amendments as submitted with the change to Article 42.12C F stating, changing it from county board to planning commission / board of adjustment.
Yes.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks for all your work on that.
Thank you. It's been an interesting, I've learned a lot. So every time I do these things, I learn a lot. So I always
Well, I
enjoy
know
that,
it's
so.
considerable amount of work, so thank you.
All right, so
think-
matters on the agenda? You go ahead.
Now,
You can-
we are at,
Yep.
have a good evening, folks.
She's still afraid to talk over there, so, all right. So next meeting is June 18th. We have 11 applications. We have one after-the-fact variance for a side yard setback for a garage. We have 5 variances, and 1 land use map amendment, 2 conditional use permits, and 2 plats.
Wow.
So on-sites are June 4th. We're gonna make 8 stops. The problem is we have to take 2 vehicles because due to the holiday on Monday, we couldn't get it pubbed in time to get to 10 days, so we're gonna have to break us up into 2 groups. If there's 3 of us, then we're gonna have to take 2 vehicles and follow take 2 vehicles out because we can't be together. We'll have to do 2 separate visits on the on-sites because we couldn't get it published in time to make it work, so.
So we have to do 2 different days or no?
2 different vehicles.
Yep, it's gonna be 2 different vehicles
Oh,
where you
okay.
2 are gonna go out and take a visit and then one, we're just gonna have to break you up into groups of, I'm guessing there'll be 4 on the on-site. I don't know, Andy, can you make it?
I'll be there.
And I think John can make it too, so we'll just have to take 2 vehicles and then we'll just have to do just kind of,
So we'll take two county vehicles?
yeah,
There you go.
correct.
So both vehicles can't be at the same on-site together.
Well, we can if you just gonna be in separate vehicles, you can't, so you're gonna have to,
Oh,
they're gonna
so
have to go
we can't
look,
discuss
they're gonna have to wait until they go look and then we're have to stay in separate vehicles. It's gonna be that way for next month too because of the holiday, July 4th.
What holiday we got in June?
4th of July coming up.
No, in June. Is it because of Memorial Day we can't meet the publication? day? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And they pub things weird now. I mean, since they don't publish anymore, you get 2 days a week and that's it. So I mean.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but it's like she had to know yesterday at 4th, because cutoff day was yesterday and we had to get the pub in by 4:30, but even getting it in still, we were still, didn't meet
Can we
it.
find a different publication?
It's Brainerd Dispatch, so we don't have a choice, so.
2 papers a week.
So a couple things I wanted to talk about real quick. One is that I think we made a mistake at the meeting last month when we added those 2 items to the agenda for the one condition about removing the engineering side for the guy in the bluff, and the other one for extending the deadline to submit final plat for that plat up in Jenkins Township, up in the Pine River. So we've had some discussions internally, and we are trying to just be helpful to the applicants and trying to help them get them moving on their projects. But I think it put you guys in a bad spot where you didn't maybe have enough time to really process maybe what they're asking for. So if that happens again, where we